Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. What if Nar was secretly desired by every woman in Konoha? If you enjoy, then please like, share, and do comments. The ninja village of Konoha GKIR. He was wearing a white shirt with a red swirl on the back, similar to those on the back of the Chunin and Junin flag jackets of the ninja of the village, as well as black baggy pants and black kids' boots, all of which looked old, dirty, and worn out. His face had some mud on it, as well as 3 distinct whisker marks on his face with golden hair that looked like it was bathed in sunlight, yet right now was covered in a little dirt. He was currently running down the street laughing tauntingly at 3 Uchiha police force officers pursuing him. "Get back here, you Demon Gaji," yelled the oldest looking one with silver hair going off to one side, named Yasher. The other 2 were yelling similar things. "Ha ha. You never catch me." Losers, laughed Nar as he continued to run down one of Konoha's main market district streets while ignoring the hateful stares from majority of the villagers. He got some from some of the ninja as well. But every time he saw one and they saw him, they tried to chase him. Something that scared him to no end. So he hid from them all the time or tried to until these 3 Uchiha police force guys saw him. Despite masses of people setting up for the festival tonight, Naruto's little legs and short stature allowed him to run through the crowded streets with ease. Unlike the Uchiha police force officers, he kept running until he ran into a dark side all full of old boxes and dumpsters rather quickly. But he was slow enough that the still crowd struggling police members saw. Regrouping at the ally, the 3 Uchiha weak cursed as they saw it was empty. Yasher called out, "Shit, we lost him. He has to be around here somewhere. Split up. If you don't find him after 2 hours, report back to HQ. Go." With that, Yasher ran down the alley's other end and went right. The other who followed went left, and the third went back the way they came and ran farther down the market street. A couple of seconds after the 3 police members were gone, a mat was moved from atop one of the boxes. It was quickly thrown away by a laughing young Nar who was holding his gut in mirth. Those bakas, thought an amused Nar, knowing he had to leave the area before more mysterious people went looking for him or those scary masked guys showed up. Nar was thinking of a place to go. Can't go back to the orphanage. They'd rat me out in an instant and they were horrible to me and kicked me out for some stupid reason. Don't want to go back to the forest yet. Can't go back to Fort Nar in that other alley. It was found by those weird people with masks that were also looking for me. Anybody looking for me that hard can't mean anything good for me. Yet, I still don't understand why people don't like me. I'm hated for some reason by this village, but I'll show them that I'm no demon. Nar just jumped out of his box and sighed before smiling quickly a few seconds later. No use feeling down. I know. Maybe I'll go to the park and try making friends again. And maybe finally today I'll see that nice old man again. Even though it's getting late. But I'll still try, for I'm not giving up. Dad Bo, thought Nar excitedly and determinedly. Before his stomach rumbled and hurt. Rubbing his stomach, he laughed sheepishly before a depressing look came on his face. Talking to himself quietly and barely about a whisper, he stated, "But first, I got to find some food. I haven't eaten in a while." Running fast, he tried to find a person to steal food from, something he dreaded doing. Normally, he would only take an apple or a small loaf of bread, since he saw stealing as a bad crime and something you shouldn't do. Yet, the hunger pains were getting worse, so he had to take more food. His best catch were bentos he took from picnics. But no matter where he took food from, he always said a prayer for the people that he stole from, so they would somehow get twice the food he stole. He really detested stealing. Yet he had no money and he couldn't find the nice old man that always helped him. Plus, no one else seemed to be. So he was off to find a mark to steal from since he hadn't eaten practically anything besides a bread loaf in 3 days. Finding 2 people carrying food, he decided to follow them to see if he could get a chance to take anything. One was teenage girl with purple hair tied and done in a way that reminded Nar of a pineapple wearing a tan trench coat and matching tan skirt. Blue ninja shoes with ambush shin guards and mesh undershirt. She seemed to be making lots of noise while bugging this guy with a few nasty scars on his face with a black bandana and a large black trench coat and ninja shoes. Nar also saw that they were wearing the leaf headband signifying them as Leaf Ninja. Nar always got the worst beatings from the ninja, but the girl was carrying food bags of some sort, and he liked a challenge. In the past, he had to steal from ninjas when the opportunities presented themselves to get food. Water he normally got out of bird baths, buckets, and anywhere he could find it. And that stream in the forest marked 44. Yet, he didn't want to take a risk in a beating, but it only happened when he first started living on the streets a little over a year ago. The mean orphanage matron kicked him out 4 days before this very festival. He passed up, not knowing how to take care of himself or the dangers. He was almost immediately assaulted. From that day to the day after the festival where hell and he didn't even remember the last day, just the pain, the constant beatings he received and random objects being thrown at him and the foul words they said, especially when they missed. On the last day, it was the worst. And when he woke up, he saw an old nurse about to stab him with a knife in this weird white-walled room that smelled funny while on a lumpy bed. He screamed and pushed the lady. And then he saw these 2 weird masked people enter the room and rush him and the lady. He didn't think but jumped out the open window from the 2nd floor. And despite the pain on left leg, he ran and has been in hiding ever since while systematically developing a fear of the masked people. Coming back out of his painful memories, he noticed that stoic and annoyed man toward the women was carrying something that looked like what was described to him once as a cake from the nice old man. He always wanted to try cake ever since. And the chocolate the man gave him at the orphanage was really good. Could cake be that good, too? He had always wondered. He had to try it, he told himself, now determined to get some of it no matter the cost. Even though he hated stealing, he didn't want to pass up this chance. He kept trailing them for a few blocks while they kept talking. Eventually, they made it to a place in the center or so in the village. The building was huge but had few windows. The small blonde-haired Nar saw them go in. And before the door closed, the blonde snuck in silently after them. Inside, he saw the 2 check in at a front desk covered in bars with a small hand slot and then proceed into a similar set of doors to the ones they came into. All the while, Nar was following. And once again snuck in before the doors closed. He hid behind a couch at the end of the hall near the door that all of them came from. The hall itself white with a few black couches and many brown doors. Just as quickly as they entered the room, they left. While the women seemed very excited, the man was looking a little annoyed. After making sure the coast was clear, Nar quietly went into the room. The room had several couches and chairs and a few decorative plants here and there. That's not what caught young Naruto's attention, though. What he saw had him thinking, jackpot. There were many dishes of random foods and one big white frosted cake on several foldable brown and or black tables. Nar would have cried in happiness had he not grabbed a plate and stared dishing up some of the food with some utensils and chopsticks he found next them. He had to admit the food was great once he started inhaling it. Yugo Isuki dressed in the typical Konoha ANBU gear. With a gray flag jacket arm and shin guards and gray ninja shoes while wearing a cat ANB mask. The thing that stood out the most was her flowing purple hair and violet tanto on her back. The ANBU captain was having a sad day, a very sad day, or should we say year. Even her boyfriend Hayate couldn't cheer her up most of this year. A few months back, she found out that her sensei's son was living on the streets. She was no fool. She knew as well as her boyfriend who Naruto really was. And it pained both of them for a hero to be treated as such. Hayate promised to look for him too on his downtime. Something that made Yugo fall in love with him all over again. Outside of Kakashi, no one worked as much for the mission to find the long-lost Nar in her own village than her. She spent months on the mission and sometimes days on end. And she could tell it pained the third to do so. But he had to put the village first and send most of the ANBU out on other missions. Though it seemed like her and Kakashi kept getting the as the ANBU started calling it Find the Gaki mission. Something that endeared her towards the third. Many ninja were stumped how a little kid could evade them in their own ninja village for so long. Finding Nar was becoming a challenge. Originally some thought he was dead until they found traces of him in various areas. They hit a big break about a month ago when they found what looked to be a home made of boxes in a lightly used alley on the east side of town that an Inazuke Chunin confirmed had Naruto's scent everywhere. It looked recently used and seer ch parties were renewed with vigor, though they still couldn't find him. Unknown to them was that Danzo Shimer's Nay couldn't find him either. Something that pissed the man off to no end, though he never showed it. Unknown to Nar was that he gained a lot of ANB's and Jun's eternal respect that they couldn't find him or even a hair of him for almost a year in their own ninja village. Even some non-Naruto hating shinobi that weren't ANBU or Jun looked on their spare time, but results varied. Though Atok Abetu Junui and two newly minted Chunin buddies together, Akura Amino and Suzumi Sarugaku could have sworn they saw Naruto in the crowd, but couldn't find him anywhere they looked after the sightings. Though it did start the major man hunts over again. Now Yugo was in every one of these hunts. But the fact that she couldn't find him still saddened her to no end. Checking her watch, she found she was well past her search time and feeling tired. So she depressingly decided to call it quits. Today, she had been searching for 3 whole days. Speaking quietly to herself, she said, "Sorry, Kusha-sensei. I'll find him one day." She didn't know how right she was. Heading towards ANBU HQ after signing in and taking off her cat ANBU mask and putting it in a seal on her right guard, something she learned from her sensei, which didn't help her mood. She decided to take a quick nap before the party since she promised Anko she would try her cake before she left despite wanting to go home. How someone as tomboyish and sadistic as Anko could make some of the best sweets in the world is beyond me. She thought before opening the door to a huge shock that hit her like a ton of bricks. There in ANBU HQ was the very person the entirety of the Konoha ANBU and Ninja Force have been looking for over a year, who she was looking for, and the irony was not lost to her. She also couldn't help but be amazed at the amount of food he was eating or how fast he could beat Anko in speed of shoveling food, and she thought but was brought out of her musings by Nar turning his head up and looking at her. Nar was enjoying the food, especially the cake. He ate 1/4 of it already, as well as a lot of the other foods. Since he hadn't eaten in a long time, or that much for that matter, he figured that he could splurge hunger, putting him in a false sense of security, and even making him forget how much he hated to steal since the food was so good. Survival and childishness, really. After finishing another plate, He looked up and what he saw horrified him. There was a woman, though he thought she was pretty, but someone had caught him stealing. And now he was going to get beaten like always. He slowly got out of his chair and curled into a ball on the floor while he closed his eyes and waited. Yugo, for her part, couldn't fathom why he was doing that until it hit her like a ton of bricks. He thought he was going to be beaten for this transgression. Yugo knew that what she did next would be really important, so she decided to play dumb. She quietly but quickly walked up to him and asked who he was. Something she could see shocked him. There was also something in his eyes she couldn't pinpoint, but could tell one was the feeling for longing and another was extreme pain. To her eternal surprise, he hopped up and looked at her with his finger on his mouth and his head turned to the side as if he was thinking. She thought that at this moment he looked absolutely adorable and the whisker marks weren't helping. She had to force herself not to kawaii and glump the poor kid, though she did take out a camera and take a picture of the boy who seemed distracted before putting it back into her pack. Yugo could see 1,000 uses for this picture later. Though the kid seemed to see the flash and it broke him out of his stupor in surprise. Nar was still very confused by why the pretty lady was looking at him that he saw a flash and then turned to her, wondering what just happened. So he had to ask, "Who are you, pretty lady?" Yugo Tokabetu Junui and two newly minted Chunin buddies together, Akura Amino and Suzumi Sarugaku could have sworn they saw Naruto in the crowd, but couldn't find him anywhere they looked after the sightings. Though it did start the major man hunts over again. Now Yugo was in every one of these hunts. But the fact that she couldn't find him still saddened her to no end. Checking her watch, she found she was well past her search time and feeling tired. So she depressingly decided to call it quits. Today, she had been searching for 3 whole days. Speaking quietly to herself, she said, "Sorry, Kusha-sensei. I'll find him one day." She didn't know how right she was. Heading towards ANBU HQ after signing in and taking off her cat ANBU mask and putting it in a seal on her right guard, something she learned from her sensei, which didn't help her mood. She decided to take a quick nap before the party since she promised Anko she would try her cake before she left despite wanting to go home. How someone as tomboyish and sadistic as Anko could make some of the best sweets in the world is beyond me. She thought before opening the door to a huge shock that hit her like a ton of bricks. There in ANBU HQ was the very person the entirety of the Konoha ANBU and Ninja Force have been looking for over a year, who she was looking for, and the irony was not lost to her. She also couldn't help but be amazed at the amount of food he was eating or how fast he could beat Anko in speed of shoveling food, and she thought but was brought out of her musings by Nar turning his head up and looking at her. Nar was enjoying the food, especially the cake. He ate 1/4 of it already, as well as a lot of the other foods. Since he hadn't eaten in a long time, or that much for that matter, he figured that he could splurge hunger, putting him in a false sense of security, and even making him forget how much he hated to steal since the food was so good. Survival and childishness, really. After finishing another plate, he looked up and what he saw horrified him. There was a woman, though he thought she was pretty, but someone had caught him stealing. And now he was going to get beaten like always. He slowly got out of his chair and curled into a ball on the floor while he closed his eyes and waited. Yugo, for her part, couldn't fathom why he was doing that until it hit her like a ton of bricks. He thought he was going to be beaten for this transgression. Yugo knew that what she did next would be really important, so she decided to play dumb. She quietly but quickly walked up to him and asked who he was. Something she could see shocked him. There was also something in his eyes she couldn't pinpoint, but could tell one was the feeling for longing and another was extreme pain. To her eternal surprise, he hopped up and looked at her with his finger on his mouth and his head turned to the side as if he was thinking. She thought that at this moment he looked absolutely adorable and the whisker marks weren't helping. She had to force herself not to kawaii and glump the poor kid, though she did take out a camera and take a picture of the boy who seemed distracted before putting it back into her pack. Yugo could see 1,000 uses for this picture later. Though the kid seemed to see the flash and it broke him out of his stupor in surprise. Nar was still very confused by why the pretty lady was looking at him that he saw a flash and then turned to her, wondering what just happened. So he had to ask, "Who are you, pretty lady?" Yugo fourth life of her blushed but didn't know if she should laugh or hit the gagaki. Although while thinking that this she realized clueless kid was going to be a chick magnet later in life. He's going to definitely look like his father but if he's clueless like him too. Oh dear. Shaking herself out of her thoughts of the future. She introduced herself as Yugo Azuki but he could call her Yugo. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki de Yugo-chan." She smiled and ruffled his head before his stomach growled. She giggled and started fixing a plate of food for him which consisted of a lot of vegetables, some fruit, and more grains. Since she noticed he went after the meat, potatoes, and sweets, especially the sweets, and oh, she so hoped that Anko wouldn't be mad about the cake. She was no doctor, but she knew Nar needed some nutrients in him from a lack of diet. Turning around, she saw Nar shifting his feet and looking down. When she turned around and handed him a plate, Nar started crying. "I'm sorry for stealing your food. I was so hungry. It's been a while since I ate. I'll work it off." Yugo was angry, but didn't show it. She wasn't angry with Naruto. No, he was innocently trying to survive. She was angry with most of Konoha and some of the council for letting this poor boy suffer from their ignorance. He was a hero that protected them every day. And this is what they do to him. Ignore, torture, and starve him. He was a child, and she would be damned if she let this continue. She would adopt the boy no matter the consequences, and anyone would be damned if they got in the way. She would also contacts if she had to. Her sensei told her the connection the Uzumaki and Senju clans had between them as cousin clans, and how Kusha's aunt married the first Hokage Hashiyama. She would do this all for Naruto and be damned the consequence if it made his life one day better. She though had to think of now for him. "It's okay, Naruto-kun. Why don't you come sit back at the table with your Oni-chan and have some more food? You're obviously still hungry," she said, with a smile that would have melted any man in Konoha. Nar didn't seem to care about that. He just picked his head in shock at what she was implying. Oni-chan seemed foreign to him, like he didn't know what she was saying. His shock was still evident. He was started to act like a statue before a rare smile came across his face. A smile that warmed Yugo's heart for some reason. And she though would definitely be getting him some girls in the future. "Okay, Oni-chan." And he sat at the table waiting for her, but wasn't waiting long as she sat down across from him while simultaneously setting the plate she made down in front of him. One look at the plate and Naruto crossed his arms and shook his head. And with a no vegetables. Yugo's left eye started twitching. And by now, most guys, ANBU and even Hayate included, would be seen running. But Naruto didn't know this. Plus, Yugo got an idea from what her sensei said she used against her husband a lot. She did the dreaded puppy eyes no jutsu on the unsuspecting Nar. Nar was stubborn and held but barley and shook his head. Yugo could tell this, and although surprised, she decided to add an incentive with the jutsu since she now realized it was Naruto's Birthday today, but up the stakes as well. Your new Oni-chan will let you have the rest of that cake if you eat this whole plate, plus one more of my choosing. All the while praying Anko wouldn't kill her instead. Though she knew Inko had a soft spot for the boy as well for their similar situations. He agreed so fast and practically inhaled the food and the second plate of her choosing. Although she was a bit merciful and only gave him half the vegetables, then the first one and put beef and rice on his plate and the rest of it, it didn't stop him from inhaling this plate as well. Something she thought she would have to work at with him or at least get it to his mother's level of self-control. Keeping her promise, she said that he could eat the cake, but he had to do so slowly. He nodded while she asked him questions as innocently and casually as she could in the form of light conversation. After asking where he lived, he told her that he lived in many places. He explained he made a lot of forts. He rather dramatically and affectionately called them all Fort Nar, which caused her to giggle. His antics reminding her of both his parents in many different ways. Never stopping from his cake, he went on to tell her how some civilians or ninja found some of the places and beat him out of it or wrecked it so he wouldn't come back. He never noticed her eyes hiding in her hair or the dark look on her face. Hell, you probably, if you looked close enough, see hell itself behind her. He then explained how he broke into the junkyard or the sewer, but couldn't get comfortable in those places, so he went to some forest with 44 on it and stayed in there for a couple of days here and there. This scared her to death. She couldn't believe that he would go in there or how he survived thus far. Hell, she was surprised Anko didn't know he went in there since that was her private spot and training field. Damn, she thought. No wonder we couldn't find him. He was constantly moving and he kept going places we wouldn't dream of. He ate another 1/4 of the cake through his story and she was about to tell him that they were going to visit the old man or Gigi since she remembered what the Hokagu told the ANBU and some ninja what Naruto called him. Another thing just like his mother but never got the chance. A tiger Tenzo masked ANBU came in that looked exactly like her except he had a mask on and his tanto was wooden. Nar saw him and absolute primal fear came on his face. Something that was not missed by either Yugo or Tenzo. Yugo turned her head to address the still surprised Tenzo, but was not expecting Nar to run away. Though she wanted to face Palm so badly when she noticed that despite his shown fear, he was running with the cake in both of his tiny hands. He booked past her and under Tenzo's legs, cake and all, and was heading for the entrance. Yugo and Tenzo in pursuit. Nar was scared of the masked guys and didn't think he saw how Yugo was familiar with the other one and thought she betrayed him to keep him there. Till others showed up and they could beat him. He grabbed the cake without thinking and headed to the door and under the masked guy's legs. Making it to the door, he noticed the tall, dark, and scarred man that he followed into the building, but not the young women. Surprise was evident on his face before Naruto tripped and then cake was sent flying toward him. The other half of the cake ended right up on Ibiki Morino's face, something that he would later have a hard time living down. Nar quickly got up and booked for the door again as the scarred man was trying to wipe up getting through that one. He didn't stop as whoever was beyond the counter was yelling out at him to stop and he made it out the other door. All the while hearing a loud whistle in the background. He didn't know where he was heading, but he figured the park was the best place to hide and hope the scary masked men and women didn't get him. Yugo, for her part, was confused as to why Nar was scared of Tenzo. She knew Tenzo wasn't a Nar hater, nor that he would do anything to hurt him. In fact, he was one of the few ANBU that worked hard to find her new little brother. Nonetheless, she knew they had to get him back. So she blew the ANBU whistle to get all neighboring ANBU to her location pronto. The whistle was forbidden to use for just anything, as it took ANBU from their assigned tasks in the vicinity of the whistle, which only works for that same ANBU's chakra signature to help with what is deemed an immediate emergency of the highest caliber, and all ANBU who responded would get what they call a whistle bonus in pay. Plus, civilians knew that it is serious when the whistle is used and that the sound of it is known to cause a panic. These are the reasons that it is only under very emergency situations that said whistle is used. Yugo hoped no civilians would hear the whistle, which none did, but knew she wasn't going to get into trouble for using the thing. She knew that practically all the ANBU wanted this mission wrapped up, and that the Hokagu was looking for his surrogate grandson. So, no harm done, but she was not letting Naruto spend another night on these streets. Especially being so close. She only hoped that whatever the fear was, he would overcome it. She and Ibiki then brought over 20 ANBU up to speed and told them to fan out in teams of 2. Yugo and Tenzo quickly agreed to be a team, and Yugo was swiftly put in charge as head ANB of the other teams, since she was also the only ANBU captain among them. She quickly put on her cat mask again, and despite being up for over 3 days went out to find her little brother. Nar, being as scared as he was, and with a few tears in his eyes at what he thought as betrayal, headed to the park to find a nice place to cry and hopefully sleep. He was weaving in and out of the streets for several blocks very quickly. Seeing the forested part, he thought it would be a good idea to make a detour through the woods to look for a new place to build a new fort. Nar later, after his assured escape, rushing through the trees, he stopped and hid behind one to catch his breath when he suddenly heard talking. Curiously looking over, he saw a sight that angered him and made him forget about the past few minutes or how he lost that delicious cake. A small short girl was surrounded by 3 somewhat older looking boys who were making fun of her. She had shorthime style hair with a blue clip on the left side, was wearing a light blue yakuta with 2 sakura petals on it, and had lavender tinted pupil-less white eyes that he thought were pretty. See guys, I told you she was a weakling. She's probably stuck up like the rest of the Hagen, said the apparent leader of the group. The others just laughed and agreed. The girl looked frightened and was shaking and crying. Plea Santo up stuttered and begged the girl. Nar, watching this little scene, was getting angrier. I'll get them for sure for this, he thought with determination in his eyes. She should apologize for her clan's rude actions, said the skinny one in front of her. Agreed, said the apparent leader on her hands and knees at that. And he never got to finish as a rock hit him in the back of the head. Turning around, while simultaneously rubbing his head with his left hand, he and the other 2 boys were on alert. Who threw that? Demanded the leader. Nar jumped out from his hiding spot behind the tree, stuck his tongue out, turned around, and ran back behind the tree. Get him! Yelled the leader at the others as they ran behind the tree, in both shock and anger. As they were rounding the tree, Nar swung back a large branch and let it go. Before the 3 older kids could act, it promptly hit them square in their faces, sending them tumbling down to the ground in a heap. The 3 bullies looked up in a daze before all 3 were punched hard in their faces. With a big grin and pointing toward the girl, Nar declared, "That's for her, you baka bullies." Nar never noticed the big blush that appeared on the girl's face after he declared that. The bullies seemed to be coming around after that declaration, and in complete spontaneous yet protective action. While laughing at the bullies, he grabbed one of the still blushing girl's free hands and ran. As the duo continued to run to nowhere in particular through the park, Naruto never noticed the girl's now completely red face, which could rival a tomato in redness and was still getting darker. They kept running all of through the wooded sections of the park, but finally stopped running near a pond surrounded by rocks of varying sizes and under a shady willow. The girl was panting, but Nar was only a little winded. After getting his bearings, Nar held out his hand and said, "Nar Uzumaki, want to be my friend?" The girl was still red and looked at his hand for a long second until she shyly shook his hand and stuttered, "Hi, Ayatada. Huugadeu. For saving me and sway I be furry NDS with Yoyuya." Nar just flashed her his foxy grin before doing what could only be described as a kitty victory dance while shouting, "I got my very first friend, Yahoo!" Hinata could only giggle at his antics. Still blushing, but with only a tinge, she finally got a good look at her savior. And all she could think was, "Those whisker marks are cute." Her blush, which was mostly gone by now, was now once again in full swing. Nar never noticed before he suddenly hugged Hinata tightly as she swung her arms up and down in panic, almost fainting. "Yeah, we'll be the best of friends. Okay," yelled Nar excitedly, in which Hinata, blushing redder than a tomato even and looking more like a volcano after bursting, could only nod in embarrassment and slight happiness. Letting her go excitingly asked her if she wanted to play tag and she not trusting her voice could only nod. Nar was having fun for the first time he could recall and they were having so much fun that they forgot all of the important stuff like the kids they were and missed that it was getting dark. They mostly played tag but also I spy and hide and go seek. The fun and games finally hit a snag when Naruto beat it in another game of tag tripped again and tagged Hinata on the chest where her ass would come in. She went into full-fledged blush mode and started to wobble. Remembering her mother who was joking at the time and not that she knew, telling her that a guy touching her chest was a sign of marriage. Nar being the dense and educated, but seriously dense kid that he was started to panic. "Hinata-chan, are you okay? You're not sick, are you?" asked Naruto as he steadfastly put his forehead to hers. Poor little Hinata, already on the edge of fainting, only had two thoughts before passing out. Finally, he called me Hinata-chan. And he's touching me close again before promptly passing out. Nar, still in a panic and still with a childlike mind, could only think of one thing. I got to find a doctor and fast. Not wanting to leave his new best friend by herself, he softly and gently grabbed her arms and put them around his neck and positioned her around so he was carrying her on his back. Remembering that there was a festival celebrating the Yandime's defeat of the Kalobi, Naruto figured that someone there would be able to help him. I was hoping to enjoy it tonight since the orphanage lady never let me go, he thought. His thoughts quickly went to his new friend and he knew he had something else to do. Then running swiftly, he started running out of Kono, his main park, to the city just as the sun was going down. Horizon Sarutobi, the third Hokage, the professor of all shinobi, was having one of those days. The only word to describe it was he was going to spend a quiet and lovely evening with his family when life and karma teamed together, the real they can be, decided not to grant him such a privilege. An hour and a half ago, Kat and several ANBU tried to apprehend his elusive adopted grandson, Naruto Uzumaki, after he somehow broke into ANBU HQ. The report was interesting to take, and Kat promised a very detailed report later, and with some peculiar info she suspected. It was the first sighting in 2 weeks, despite finding his makeshift home a month before. Sarutobi felt nothing but unadulterated shame that he failed his successor and his old friend Toshi Uzumaki. He promised his successor Minato Namikaze that he would protect his son and he failed rather horribly. He honestly thought the orphanage would protect Nar, but he realized how Naive he was about that. After finding out that Naruto's allowance that he was supposed to be getting and started supposed to be getting since he was 3. Instead, Sarutobi finds out that the matron and 3 orphanage associates took most of it, if not all his money, since he started receiving it. To top it off, they kicked him out of the orphanage over a year ago, and were still taking his money. They only found this out because Sarutobi himself decided to spontaneously visit him on his way home after work 2 days after the event. The third Hokage was furious to say the least. After an all-expense paid trip to Ibiki and Anko, the whole story comes out. Nar got extra chores, almost none of his allowance, was shut off from the other kids. Taught almost nothing at the orphanage via basic schooling or almost anything at all. Locked in his room a lot, given meager amounts of food, and simply kicked out and being called ungrateful for sneaking out of his locked room and getting caught eating food in the kitchen. The matron was promptly executed, and the 3 associates were given a 30-year sentence in jail of hard labor. That was only after the third took back and gave all the money that they stole back into Naruto's family account with interest and took enough money out of all of them to cover the purchase of a nice apartment building in both the third's and Naruto's name that he was going to give to Naruto full rights over when they found him. Find him, they did with half his bones broken in his body and some severe lacerations, eternal bleeding, and head trauma. The civilians that were found doing this to him were later tortured and executed. Plusone civilian getting 3 years in jail for supplying the mob with Naruto's location. Then when Naruto wakes up, he sees a nurse trying to kill him. And of all the crazy things he could do, he pushes her out of the way and jumps from his 2-story hospital room and escapes as a do close in. The nurse was tortured and executed that same night, and only a few have seen Naruto since. All this was a lesson to the rest of the population, or so Serbi Hope would be. Although he himself felt and knows that most of the villagers were lying when they said, haven't seen him. Yet, he knew how unethical, politically insane, and how much unwanted attention it would cause if he gave half the village to Ibiki and Enko for interrogation. Though it did put a small smile on his face when he realized he would get their eternal favor if he did. The shame of not protecting his good friend Toshiya's grandson and his predecessor's son, though, was still getting to him. He was defiantly going to make it up to Nar when he found him. Though he apologetically cursed the boy for being so good at hiding to the point where none of his ANBU could find him. Although a small part still felt happy that he kept Nar away from Danzo and kept his inheritance safe. Especially the money with the bank owner, an old friend of Minato and Kusha and an ex-ninja and one of only 4 civilian council members. That weren't a pain in his ass. However, that relief was short-lived, for he had 2 pissed-off men in his office for various reasons and another crisis besides the missing Naruto that now had Kumogakure involved as well. Even though you couldn't see behind the dog ANBU's mask, Kakashi Hideki in typical ANBU gear and a black tanto on his back, he could tell how pissed he was. The killing intent was obvious with slumped shoulders, the only sign of the depression within. Then bring into the picture the usual stoic Hiashi Hyuga in near-blind panic rage that only got worse when he found out that Naruto still wasn't found. The third never saw this much emotion from Hiashi. Well, ever Hiashi was wearing his clan's typical wear of a white kimono. And with his long brown hair tied at the end, rubbing his temples while smoking his pipe, the Hokage kept repeating like a mantra. I'm too old for this, why me? I'm too old for this, why? Blowing out some smoke from his mouth. Serbi in his Hokage outfit and Hokage hat on his head, just sighed before straightening himself up and looking at the duo. Dog, any news on Naruto's or Hinata's whereabouts? It's Naruto's birthday today and I have a gift to give him, asked and stated the Hokage with some prodding authority. The Hokage, already knowing that he lost a lot of respect from the head ANB captain and third behind the leader of all of Konoha's ANBU. The dog masked anew, straightened himself up a little bit and lessened the killing intent. But the Hokage only heard that because of his sensitive ninja ears. The ANBU captain dog looked at Sarutobi and shook his head. Sorry Hokage-sama. His scent is all over Konoha. He seems to travel a lot and it's interfering with the search. But some ANBU lead by cat have informed me before your summons that they have freshly tracked him to Konoha Central Park and that we may get him yet. Also reporting to her is a second team about the young Hyuga heiress and has informed me two similar results. Sarutobi let out a breath that momentarily showed relief as well before turning back to extremely concerned and angry. Hokage-sama, Hiashi started. This is why you should have let one of the more informative and understanding clans adopt him. Shikaku, I and Murakumo have all tried to and you stop us. This wouldn't have happened if you let us. For Kami's sake, Murakumo and I are not only Minato's Gen team members. We along with Shikaku clan allies. So why can't we adopt him? Even Dog here has tried as well. Midarashi-san, Maruboshi-san and that civilian council member Ikyaku-san, why can't any one of us adopt young Uzumaki? Sanashi rambled out very fast once again. The Hokage felt his age, never liking that he had to take up the hat again or let it concede to possibly Danzo Hiashi. I've already explained this, started the Hokage in a professional tone. You, Shikaku and Murakumo are all clan heads and that particular adoption could start clan feuds and many questions. Like you said, you and Murakumo were Minato's teammates. The third Hokage took a breath and thanked Kami once again for privacy seals that he had activated once the two had arrived. He continued, our main goal is to not draw attention to Nar in any way. That includes Dog as Minato's student known to be with me. While we rushed to the Fox ceiling area that night, Dog's shoulders slumped even lower, though only the Hokage noticed and winced inside from guilt of not doing the ceiling himself or getting there in time. Shikaku is also the Junin commander, which doesn't help his case. Plus, everyone knows Naris have some universal reason for doing almost anything outside of watching clouds and breathing, and Enkochan's X-Sense reputation already puts problems on her. We don't need to add Nar to that mix. My old friend Kosuke would be a good choice. But his reputation and abilities are highly respected and I don't want him to lose that because of ignorance. As well as the fact he's the only other person who came with me to the scene that night besides Jun and Haki Mimura, Dogger and Ambutuna. Doesn't help. It will make people question him and why as well. I also don't want to dump problems on his daughter-in-law, granddaughter, and Manabu, or I might just have allowed him to. That's too much for them to handle right now, especially since his son and Manabu's wife died in the Fox's attack. Though I know they won't feel hatred toward him, it still might cause them problems in the future. The old Hokage sighed. Tuna and Hamaki have both asked me as well, but before they submitted the official paperwork, but I said no. I myself would have liked to. My family can tell the difference between a kunai and a scroll, but that would defeat the purpose and only make questions and make him a possible target. All of this is to make him as small a target as possible as well as to keep him away from any sort of Danzo's influence and clutches. Giving to a non-ninja family like the Ikyakus who I know we're close to the family and meanwhile will make Nar and them vulnerable. However, I will be the first to admit I have failed Nar and when they find him, I will make it up to him. I won't be getting him his house yet because certain legal issues. But I will make it up to him and at least tell him who his parents are. He deserves to know. And Kakashi, the third Hokage, getting the angry and depressed dog masked ANBU's attention in shock by calling him his name while still wearing his mask. Something completely against protocol and ethics, even for a cage. The third continued, if he decides to become a ninja, he will be on your team no matter what. The council says, and who's against? The council can be damned. I'm the blasted Hogue, and I need to show it. I've been too lax for too long. The Hogue's new fire and speech, somewhat unknown to him, got him some valuable and much needed points. From Kakashi and Hiashi. The next thing is that Jiraiya is going to come and do some of his godfatherly duties finally, and so he will be looked well after. Kakashi and Hiashi were surprised, but before they could comment, the third then turned to Hiashi, who looked somewhat taken back by what was just said, but with a still schooled, worried face. Now, Hiashi, the Kumo nin that the panicked Ko saw entering the Hyuga compound via the wall, spilled everything. Apparently, he was tasked by some of the Kumo elders to kidnap your daughter, but he doesn't have her, addressed the Hokage. The Hokage saw some relief, but a still panicked Hyuga. It's a good thing your brother saw Ko jump over the wall after him and helped subdue the Kumo nin. It was extraordinary luck that we have this opportunity and people witnessed this. Now we have a live nin and valuable intel. It seems Kumo thinks they are going to win, but we have a good political bargaining chip. Now I know it's not my business, since it's your clan, but can I inquire what is going to happen to young Ko for misplacing your daughter and heiress? The room was quiet for a moment before the Hyuga patriarch spoke. You don't have to worry, Hokage-sama. I have no ill intentions. For County, this is not the first time this has happened. County has informed me that she runs off all the time due to her curiosity of the life outside of the compound, but he normally finds her within 3 minutes or less. He has asked me what he should do if it takes longer, and I gave him instructions that he followed, which if he looks upon the general area to inform me if he can't find her in 15 minutes to start a search and inform the clan. Hai finished with a look to the ground. After a moment, he looked back up and continued. She is so much like her mother Toyo, who herself laughs at the similarities. This time Hiashi, although with a little smile on his face, sighed deeply. Then turning serious again, he addressed the Hokage. However, you need not to worry. Hokage-sama. Ko is just following my orders and in doing so caught an enemy ninja entering our compound uninvited. I will personally see to it that nothing happens to him and the Haga elders are kept in line. Saratobi let out a curt and approving nod toward Hiashi when a swirl of smoke appeared between Hiashi and dog. In the swirl was a purple-haired kneeling female cat masked ANBU. The other occupants in the room were all looking at the kneeling female ANBU with critical eyes, for they all wanted good news. You may stand, cat, and tell us your update, said the third Hokage. Kindly getting up with a thank you, Hokage-sama. She began to give her report with the semi-bad news that they wear clothes but lost the trail. But they all perked up when she said that the Hyuga heiress Nar and another unknown child were obviously traveling together. Something that Hiashi was shocked to discover. I wonder if this was fate, he thought to himself. She decided to make a request to find her kid brother permission to speak freely. She asked. The Hokage nodded. Sir, we're real close to his trail to help pinpoint his location. Can we try your crystal ball? She asked with a hoping voice. Sarobi sighed but nodded and opened a drawer and set up his crystal ball. Due to Konoha looking similar in many places, it is hard to track the specific location from this. But I do try it at least 3 times a day and hope to find him. Maybe one of you three would recognize where he is. So, please watch as well. The Hokage inclined. The other three nodded, especially Hiyashi, who was wondering what Nar and his daughter were doing and who the third person they were with is. What the crystal ball showed garnered a lot of killing intent from the occupants. Nar was holding back a mob that was attacking him while also protecting two girls, one of which was Hinata Hyuga. The other girl was quickly identified by the Hokage. That's Kosuke Maruboshi's granddaughter, Junko. I wonder how they all met. The aged Hokage thought. If anyone saw all four occupants of the Hokage office, it would be hard to say who was the most pissed. With venom in his voice that promised punishment, the Hokage had to ask, "Does anyone know where they are?" It took a 2 agonizing seconds before he got an answer. "Look," said Hiyashi, pointing to a logo on 1-2 boxes next to the two girls. "That's the alley behind the jewelry store a lot of the Hyugas use," he finished. Wasting no time, the Hokage asked, "Can you show us the way?" "Hi." The Hyuga head nodded. Serbi opened 2 of his office windows. "No time for the door. Hi. You lead the way." Once again, the Hyuga head nodded with pure hatred and determination in his eyes. The third Hokage pointed to the 2 ANBU and said, "You're coming too." They nodded, and a second later, the office was empty and quiet, but the traces of the potent killing intent remained. Hell was about to be raised. Hinata felt warm, the warmest she could ever recall ever being. She continued to snuggle up to the warmth. That is until she started recalling what her last memories were, and she woke up with a start. Looking ahead of her, all she could see was a sea of shining blonde spiky hair. She was memorized before realization hit her. She turned 8 shades of red and then eeped. Nar, for his part, made it 3 steps out of the park when he heard it and felt Hinata wake up. Stopping, Naruto asked, "Hinata-chan, are you okay? You passed out. Hang on, I'm going to go find a doctor." "Okay." Hinata, for her part, looked bashful and turned an extra 4 shades of red. That smoke started pouring from her head. Nar made it to the end of the block when Hinata found her voice again. "Naren, please put me down. I'm okay. Honest." Nar obliged, but still looked worried. While Hinata was still beet red, but had calmed down some. An awkward silence prevailed for a couple of seconds before Nar shook his head, getting the attention of Hinata. "What is it, Naren?" she asked. Nar just shook his head again, but this time with a smile. "Just call me Nar. We're friends, and plus I don't really care for honorifics." Hinata could only shake her head. "Friends we are, but I will just call you Narun, and you can keep calling me Hinata-chan," she answered shyly while simultaneously shuffling her feet and peeking at Nar out of the corner of her eyes. Rather cutely. Nar brought his hand to his chin as he was in deep thought, something that made Hinata giggle, but Nar didn't notice. "Fine," he conceded. "You are my fifth friend, so I suppose," he relented with another foxy grin while rubbing the back of his head. Something Hinata thought was cute and made her cheeks flush. Something she realized she had been doing a lot since she met Naruto not that long ago. She slowly started to question those thoughts and what they could mean, and if since he touched her chest means they're husband and wife, which in turn made her cheeks blush heavily. She put her 2 hands on her cheeks and was still in thought and never noticed Nar was walking a short distance away. For at that moment, Nar was distracted by muffled sound of someone crying. Ignoring the dirty looks and glares he was getting by passerbys, Naruto went over to a girl around his and Hinata's age sitting and crying by a crate on the side of a gray stone wall. The girl was short, but not as short as Hinata and almost as tall as Naruto. She had medium dark blue hair with one bang on her right side going to her shoulder tip, but tied in a braid and had the eye color of a majestic green. She was wearing light blue pants and ninja shoes with a similar short-sleeved shirt that was black and V-necked and a brown vest over her shirt that looked like it was made of wool that almost made her look like a small boy instead of a small girl. She was sobbing and rubbing her eyes. The light was soon blocked by something and she opened her eyes to see a boy around her age looking at her and holding out his hand. Are you okay? There's no reason to cry. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. What's the matter? The girl, for some reason, felt she could trust him and simply nodded before taking the boy's hand. Hinata, snapping out of her love-struck thoughts, turned to see her new friend help some girl she didn't know up before going over herself to see what was going on. I'm Junko Maruboshi and my grandfathers were taking me through the festival when we got separated. Now I'm lost, explained the girl looking like she was going to start crying again. Nar being Naruto put the thumbs up sign and said worry Junko-chan. I'll help you find your grandfathers. It's a promise and I won't go back on it, declared Nar. Just after Nar finished, Hinata made it over. Feeling a little shy despite her confused feelings, her kindness went out though, and she felt for the girl for her plight. This in turn made her realize that she was separated from her guardians and missing from her family. She went over and yanked a little on Naruto's shirt sleeve, getting his attention. A little shy, she said. Naruto__, I'm in the same boat. I need to get back to my house. My family is probably worried. Nar didn't even hesitate that I promised to help you get home to Hinata-chan. Then turning to look from one girl to the other twice, he suddenly and dramatically pointed from to the other girl. Hinata-chan, this Junko-chan. Then pointing to Hinata, he finished with Junko-chan. This is Hinata-chan, my friend. This made both Junko and Hinata giggle at his antics. I know. Why don't you become our friend too? Junko-chan, explained Naruto in kind way. Junko, for her part, just smiled and nodded. Hinata smiled happily, if not a bit shyly as well. Then Naruto's face became serious and thinking like something that took both girls back a little bit. Do any of you know where you live? He asked anticlimactically. Both girls just shook their head after sweat dropping. Silence prevailed for a couple of seconds before Nar declared dramatically. Then we'll walk around until one of you sees something familiar or someone you know and can help. Both girls just facepalmed at his way over dramaticness. Let's go, Dad. Bio, he declared as he started walking down the street. Hinata and Junko both giggled again. The two girls followed suit and they began their search. No one seemed to want to help them though, and almost everyone was glaring at them. Plus, it was now really dark outside and the lights were all on all over the festival. The girls were getting uncomfortable though with all bad looks they were getting until finally Junko asked the obvious, why are they glaring at us? Huh, said Nar so busy looking around at the festival and the going-ons that he didn't hear the question. I asked Narone, why are people glaring at us? Nar just bopped himself in the head. Something that brought small smiles to both the girls' faces before his revelation. Oh, they're glaring at me for reasons I don't know. I even got kicked out of the orphanage by people with similar glares, he said casually. Too casually, never noticing the girls' faces completely darken. A thick silence prevailed as the two girls glared back at the glarers. Something that threw some of the glarers for a loop. They're glaring at the kind boy trying to help them and didn't seem to deserve this treatment, which he also didn't notice. Junko then thought of another question. Naruto, if you got kicked out of the orphanage, where do you live? Hinata thought it was a good question and also wanted to know the answer, but for a different reason. Nar stopped walking and thought for a moment before surprising them both by waving his hands in the air and declaring rather loudly, "Fort Nar," something that made both girls giggle at his antics temporarily before they heard the next part. Resuming walking, he then said, "Some people found it, so I had to build it in some other alley later tonight. And I had the good boxes, too." Both girls were shocked that this nice boy who desperately trying to help them was living on the streets. They both saw that he looked dirty, but to be homeless at this age, it broke their hearts. Hinata was especially sad, for she didn't think her clan would help him since he wasn't part of a clan and he had no fame or money. Despite her age, her political skills were top-notch, something that was taught beginning at a very young age to the Hyuga children, especially the heiress. Her Ka-chan would surely help Nar in some way, especially since he was helping her and saved her. But her 2 cents might be harder to convince. If only she knew the basics of the going-ons. Junko was thinking that if anyone could help him, it was her grandfathers, people she always admired and always seemed to know what to do. Surely they could help. But now they still had to find them or someone helpful. Their musings were brought to an end by Nar. "Hey, look, there is a ninja. Maybe he could help. Hinata-chan is from a ninja clan, right? He should know where they're at," he explained excitedly while thinking back to that clan revelation. When their child minds realized that finding a specific person failed and Hinata told Nar and Junko that the Hyuga were a ninja clan and lived in a clan compound. Both girls weren't far behind as Naruto politely tapped the Tunin on the arm. The ninja with a Tunin flag jacket was talking to another Tunin. Two things went through the minds of the two girls while looking uneasily at each other. One, that his breath smelled weird. 2. They were glaring at Nar like the other people. Nar himself smelt the two ninja but didn't seem to notice the glares since he was so absorbed in wanting to help his new friends. The two girls had a bad feeling and looked uncertainly at each other. Again. It was quickly proven right. Nar didn't even get to ask his question for help for his friends before a hand shot out and lifted Nar up by his throat, choking him as well. Well. Look here, Taiji. The fox has come to play," said the ninja in a drunken sort of voice. Taiji, the other ninja, also obviously drunk, laughed. "You're right. Bacon. What should we play? Operation?" he asked. Hinata, doing something very not Hinatike, and kicked the Tunin Bacon in the leg hard. Junko didn't bother with the legs. She kicked Chunantai in every guy's weak spot and forced him on his knees. Bacon, due to pain, had dropped Naruto, who was gasping of air. "Damn," said Bacon. "The demon has __, he probably brainwashed them." Tai was seething. Brainwashed. Are not that __, hurt. The __, need to be taught a lesson. Both got up slowly, and Tai took out 2 kana and threw one at Junko, who was now too scared to move. She closed her eyes and waited for it to hit, while tears fell from her face, but it never came. When she heard a grunt, she opened her eyes and there was Nar with a kunai in his upper right arm. "Don't hurt my friends, you're jerks," shouted Nar. Hinata, for her part, had only just started learning her family's fight style, the gentle fist. But she was going to do her part and got in her stance. Junko was still silently crying and could only say, "Nar." Bacon spat on the ground while Taiji in his drunken stupor yelled to the nearby villagers, getting their attention. Some of which were as drunk as Taiji and Bacon. "Hey everybody, here's the demon child and he wants to play tag. We're all it, so let's get him." There were several shouts of agreement, mostly from the drunker ones, while Naruto was shocked still. He wasn't for long as a sake bottle flew by and barely missed him, grabbing Junko by her left hand and Hinata by her right arm as she was going into a Juken stance. They ran. They ran and they kept running for 3 blocks while being chased by a mob of mostly drunk villagers and 2 drunk Chunin who were shouting war cries and insults at Nar and Fu to the 2 girls as well. Using his and his friends' small statures, he expertly negotiated through the crowd that was started to part for the mob. But Nar was a step ahead. He managed to duck them into a small dead-end alley that seemed like only 2 people side by side could walk through, and they hugged the wall as the mob drunkenly ran past wielding various sharp and pointy objects. Nar himself sighed in relief with a kunai in his arms. Still, both Hinata and Junko were crying. We lost them now. He never got to finish as a ninja star embedded itself on back of his right hand. There, near their only way out, stood Taiji spinning a kunai in his left hand. The 3 got off the wall and slowly started backing up toward the dead-end wall while Nar also pulled out the 2 ninja weapons from his body and dropped them on the ground. They were only a few inches away when Bacon jumped down from the roof and kicked Nar square in the chest against the wall. Naruto __, shouted the girls almost perfectly together before their world went black as Bacon chopped them in the back of their necks. Tai was meanwhile calling back some elements of the mob to their location. Nar rushed forward and despite his injuries had butted the tunin in his stomach and caught the girls. He put them down together in left corner next to the 2 big boxes before turning around and stepping toward the now half reassembled mob. You're going to pay for that one demon and your __. 2. Spat Bacon. Nar knew he was surely going to die, but he would do everything in his power to protect his friends at all costs. He just got into a defensive position 3 feet from his new friends when the 2 drunk Chunin and 9 villagers charged. Standing his ground, he tried to push them back but was met with 2 kunai in the gut and few punches from a few of the villagers. That's for my father, Demon yelled one of the drunken villagers. Another splashed sake on him, mostly going to his chest area. One of the villagers seen Naruto coved and sake threw a match on him. This is to finish what the Yandami started 6 years ago. You being the demon should have died that night, yelled the villager after he threw the match. Screams pierced the air as Nar fell down in a desperate attempt to put out the flames. As Naruto was doing so, the villagers and the tunin were continuously kicking him, which caused the 2 kana to go deeper into his body. More kicks, mostly to his back, head, left arm, and stomach constantly hit him until another villager dumped more sake on him, which made the screams intensify and flames resume. After a few minutes, it was temporarily calm. Nar put the fire out from rolling around, but was bleeding from a huge gash on his face and 2 gaping holes in his stomach, several broken bones, minor gashes, and burns over 60% of his body and many other injuries. Nar was barely conscious to say the least. The mob was cheering that they killed the demon and dancing around a little bit. But Nar was not dead and was determined to protect his friends and trying to get up, but couldn't move. When he saw Taiji in a civilian head toward his friends, he mustered up all his strength and with determination rushed them, surprising everyone. He pushed them into a wall before another villager punched Nar into the still unconscious girls while a ninja star embedded itself into his right shoulder. Nar was leaning against the wall, his feet touching both girls. He couldn't move and couldn't talk and was using the wall for absolute support, but was giving the crowd a determined look. Bacon was slowly walking over and pulled out another kunai. Well, I'll finish him off for sure with this, he declared, raising the kunai amongst the cheering mob. Nar didn't have the strength to go on and had tears leaking out. His face as he solemnly thought, I failed, my friends. Before slipping into unconsciousness, Naruto never noticed the red chakra that was slowly developing around him heavily and in plain sight of everyone there, or the four angry and horrified onlookers that appeared on the roof of the jewelry store above and jumped down to protect him. However, no one there, not even the fox, knew what happened in heaven above 4 minutes ago. 4 good friends and deities were having their annual get-together, away from their rather busy lives. Really, it was just an excuse to take a break. So, sitting around a pure silver table, viewing the world from a water basin filled with water positioned in the center of said table, sitting in matching pure silver chairs where the 4 deities, Ben Zayden, Kichi, Haden, Inari, and Kami herself, all sipping green tea and having a breather, or they were, but were currently astonished at what they were seeing. All the girls had hourglass figures and teacups and wear the uptime of beauty, none so much more than Kami. Kami was wearing a pure gold princess Yakuta with long flowing black hair and tan skin. She had beautiful eyes that changed to every color of the rainbow every couple of minutes and had the most beautiful face that could make any mortal man melt. Standing along the table beside her was a redwooded naginata with a pure silver and steel blade. Ben Zayden had short blonde hair and blue eyes that glittered in the light. She was wearing an all-perp Yakuta with 2 music notes on the bottom and a pearl necklace as well as a golden mini harp at her feet. Kihoden had a smiling face that didn't seem to go away and was radiating warmth. She was wearing a simple all-yellow Yakuta but was also barefoot. While all the other goddesses at the table were roughly medium height, Inari was a foot shorter and had an all-white Yakuta on with simple fox paw prints on it and an elegant sword called Kitsumaru strapped to her side. Deities need entertainment just like mortals. So doing these breaks, Kami would command the water to show her by her instructions rare sights in the mortal realm. Normally this brought images of funny or interesting sights that even the mortals don't see every day. Some wear small acts of chivalry or romantic scenarios. Others wear just plain odd or overly dramatic. However, right now the 4 deities wear stock still and surprised as well as angry and impressed. Somethings that was hard to do to 4 of the most powerful deities in the realm. I was always sad to see the Uzumaki clan go. I gave them my blessing for warrior protection to the entire clan. Something I normally do to one person, not an entire clan. However, even I couldn't interfere when Kumo, Iwa, and AIM massacred them due to our ancient and binding laws. But they sure took a lot of them with them. That damn ungrateful and pathetic Moa had to play deity and harm my creation, Kurama. Then his minion had to unleash him a second time. Now both my creation and the one of the only 4 Uzumaki left in the world is about to die due to drunken fools who can't understand the basic definition for the word sealed. At least he's going down like his ancestors, explained Inari in sad voice that was only half true. Ben Zayden patted Inari on the back to comfort her. Although her words didn't help, but that's not what was going on. Too bad he was such a charmer. Knowing some mortal laws, I could have had fun with my blessing. There was silence for a second before Kihoden spoke in mock sadness. I second you on that one, Benton Chan. That young Uzumaki really does deserve happiness. I mean, he's trying to save his 2 new friends while practically mortally wounded that was caused by misguided hatred toward him and alcohol. Fujin's blessed clan is the Namikaze, and Sujin's blessed clan is the Jakato, and they would be sad to see him go. He's the last of these blessed clans, and they might owe favors to whoever helps him. Last of 3 and half bloodlines, but has 4. The mock's sad looks continued as Benzoden took the floor. Again. I know, right, Ki-chan. We'll wear those bloodlines again. Oh yeah. Chakra chains. The rest of the Uzumaki bloodline. Moten. Fast travel and water shaper. Meaning he is last of 2 of those clans, and between the other 2 he only has 1 relative and the other he has 2. Not to mention he was the child of prophecy. We the deities, as more importantly, because we all want an extended breakup here in heaven to have a simple extended vacation with little interruption and less paperwork. At least he will get to meet his dad and mom. For all the mortals think that seal he used to seal. The fox will forces him to stay in the stomach of the Shinigami for all eternity. Too bad that mortals can't completely play deity. And only Kami-chan here gets to decide who belongs in heaven or hell. Plus, it doesn't hurt that the Shinigami can only stomach evil or bad souls. The other 2 just nodded besides Kami in mock depression. All of which were looking at Kami out of the corner of their eyes and smirking on the inside. Kami is the only one who can authorize the breaching of the ancient pact. Or more precisely, she wrote it and can tweak it a bit for the other deities. To get her to move and do so is hard and only happens rarely. Despite her being the deity of creation and ruler of the deities for this realm, her outgoing and hard-working personality, she is also very shy. Her only friends are these 3. Which more than not are her very best friends. But she will talk to old Fujin for advice. Omoen, who isn't that social unless you ask his opinion on anything, which she does. Here and there, mostly when there is a major dispute in heaven, and her aide, and the one who brings all the paperwork to her office. Amaterasu Uzum Aim no Uzu talks to her like a big sister, and she doesn't mind it, but she also forces Kami heavily out of her comfort zone with her wildness, but Kami does consider her a friend. She just has too much fun and forgets to visit until she drops in unexpectedly. Kami herself had a weird look on her face, and she knew what her friends were trying to get her to do. She couldn't help but agree with them, but the paperwork and amateur sass scolding that was sure to come from this was not something she looked forward to. I don't think we should do this. You all make valid points, but letting nature take its course and free will are the mortal's domain, and we shouldn't interfere. Kami explained quotingly. Her friends looked crestfallen, but still determined. Something Kami knew meant trouble for her. Before she could contemplate anything else, a pair of hands started grouping her ass, fighting in her seat and trying to get the strong hands off of her. She also almost immediately smelled alcohol. Yusuzu-chan stopped, begged Kami to the tall deity in a red yakuta with sakura blossoms all over it covering J-sized death, but a rip on her left sleeve and a giant open sake bottle tied to her obi. Come on, Kami-chan. Aim no Uzu Kud. I have the biggest party planned and I can't do it until that young mortal brings peace. Me and Fujin have been making sake up the wazoo. So, let's do something to help them out. Kami was hit dumb for a second as Yusuzu stopped fondling her. Them. Kami screamed before Yusuzu fondled her harder, causing her to moan. The others were all embarrassed but listened closely. Yes, them continued. Yusuzu still seemingly absent-mindedly fondling Kam's s. Well, her face showed she was thinking. A fact not known to mortals is that Uzume was infamously spot on with odds and predictions and is well informed, which made her a horrible person to bet against during the monthly deity poker night. That one ANBU Kakashi has lost his whole team, his father, his sensei, his secret love, and adopted family. And the way things are going, it's going to get worse. And if we help him, he'll help that young Uzuaki better, which will bring our much-needed vacation faster. His clan will also go back up into full clan status if I think what might happen. Then there's is the current Hokage. He will die by his predecessor seal. The only thing you almost sent the Yandami to hell for all the paperwork it caused. The third Hokage will probably die trying to kill that pain in the ass Oromaru. That has been a pain in the ass forever and has even caused me undue amounts of paperwork in my department of rivalry. If we help him, the job will get done properly and the paperwork will lessen and his son would also live and we can stop Kazuma sooner, which would cause less paperwork. And many lives will be saved. If he is helped, then so will Hinata and his wife wouldn't be secretly assassinated by some of those blasted Hyuga elders, and the cursed seal will be gone by that prevention. That would lessen the paperwork for you for all the centuries to come, and I can finally throw a party at the Hyuga compound. Now if that last ANBU is helped, her boyfriend will be saved and cured. That's also if we help Nar out as well. But if we do help her, she will marry her boyfriend and bring happiness to Konoha. Through many people. This will also help Nar as well. Plus, they and their kids will develop a new form of kenjutsu and start a dojo and a clan. And one of their kids will also become a medic nin of great standing and help the world and save lives. This in turn means less paperwork for you. Now if we help Nar, then things will happen in this world. All good things with mostly world peace. Untold number of lives saved, goodness and peace spreading and tons upon tons of future paperwork for you destroyed. And I'll also talk to Amaterasu and she won't be a problem. After that, Uzume stopped fondling Kami and all she could do was think. Hook, line, and sinker. Good thing I kept the blackmail material of how I really got Amaterasu out of that cave. Everyone else was too drunk to notice. The others were softly giggling to themselves and knew what was coming next. For Kami, she didn't even realize that Yusuzu stopped fondling her. She had stars in her eyes and like song and mantra, she kept repeating over and over again. Less paperwork. As if her life, she's immortal, depended on it. She quickly agreed, but only a blessing to Nar on the condition that she would honor Uzume's words about what was going to happen to the other she mentioned, and that Naruto's life road doesn't deviate too far, and that most importantly that it will decrease her paperwork like they all claimed, squealing like school girls, like fangirls. At this rare occasion, the women quickly thought of what they were going to bless Nar with. Ben Zayden went first and headed to the water basin on the table. Good luck, kid. If anyone can handle what I just did to you, you can, thought Ben Zayden as she left, and Kihoden went over to the basin. Kihoden went in a thinking pose before looking down at the water basin. Your life is destined to be hard, and luck shows itself here and there to every mortal. Naruto Uzumaki, I bless you with incredibly good luck when it comes to survival and general things that are outside of your destined road. You'll find luck more than any other mortal or when you least expect it. So, your general luck as a mortal increases, as well as your survival rate. Kihoin finished and walked away. As she was passing Inari, going to the water basin, she had the amusing thought of, I wonder how many bets she can win in a lifetime. Inari, for her part, looked pleased and serious at the same time and started her blessing. Your ancestors were one of my favorite people and were very good warriors in their own way, for every warrior has a style. Naruto Uzumaki, I renew the blessing I gave your ancestors of the Uzumaki clan and that it will also pass on to your descendants as well as their skills in Fuenjutsu that was also subtly part of that pact. I bless you newly that whatever style you fight with in the future that you will become a master of that style and that you will be proficient in it, especially when fighting for the right reasons. Leaving the altar, Inari was surprised to see Kami step forward. Like noted before, Kami rarely lets people mess with the destinies of people. Deities are allowed to answer prayers and bless people and or when they along and or their ancestors have been moral or righteous have a God's undivided attention and ultimate blessing. Besides answering some prayers, Kami herself has never blessed a specific person. And then doing so when she is bending the rules was surprising to them all. Although they all sweat dropped, Kami included when Yusuzu started cheering her to the water basin. Taking a deep breath, Kami started. You are the first one that I'm giving a blessing to. So, please feel honored. And I'm also hoping it lessens the paperwork. But like the others here, I would also feel bad if you died the noble death that currently awaits you, even though it's a 50-50 chance right now. For that and not giving into hatred for how people treat you and your kind soul into simply wanting to change people's views of you as well as protecting two innocents from harm in the most painful and determined way. I shall grant 2 of your prayers and give you a blessing. Both of these may take some time, but I grant your wish that you should have a family. You yourself probably won't see it at first, but it will be there amongst your friends and neighbors and will gradually grow. Second, and this one will take the longest, but it does coincide with your destiny. Destiny is never written in stone, but generally things are meant to happen by your choices. So, I will give you the power to change people's minds when done in the right way about things. And in a sense, you will become an enigma in and on the mortal and ninja realm more so than you are now, despite you already being one. And now, for my first blessing, I bless you, Nar Uzumaki, into simply following your dreams. It will be your choice, but if you work hard enough, all your dreams will come true as long as it has either or both morals or love and or is done for the right reasons. I also offer you 2 gifts as well, and that is I will remove the very well hidden placement and filter seal that headache Danzo placed on you as a ruse to get you under his misguided control. I hope this helps you and that it ticks Danzo off and more than anything lessens the paperwork. I also will give you Kyobe's other chakra back in hopes that it helps you. The seal would have given it back eventually, but I'll let it happen sooner. Kami smiled, bowed to Nar in the hope lessening the paperwork, and strode next to the others who have blessed him. All eyes turned to the still, partially drunk Uzum, who had the most mischievous smile on her face that worried Kami to no end. Utsu, being the honorary and fun-loving person she was, hobbled over to the water basin with an evil grin. She had always wanted to do this to someone simply out of curiosity and entertainment purposes. Well, the first part. Anyway, she wanted to make him drunk-proof, but the Kaiu would just get rid of the alcohol in his system anyway. Naruto Uzumaki, I bless you with the power. The others leaned in and Kami was starting to sweat at the possible problems this could cause. Utsu was looking like she was thinking long and hard, but inside she was laughing and thinking how much fun this was going to be. Like your mother before. You will be a prankmaster and that your whisker marks and when you rub them and start purring will be passed down to your kids despite the fact you yourself don't know this can happen to you yet. And she finished with a laugh. The other 4 face palmed all the while Kami was sighing inside. Knowing her, that could have been worse and the problems it could have caused. Oh, the horror. But at least she didn't do something too bad, I think. Kami thought long and hard, hoping, just hoping, that blessing alone wouldn't cause her major problems. After the blessing, Uzu steered the conversation to what kind of favors the 5 could ask for Fujin and Sujin for saving the last descendant of their 2 family clans and possibly expanding it in the future with their blessings. During that rather entertaining hypothetical conversation, Amaterasu found them and she started berating Kami for irresponsible behavior. She was quickly silenced and red-faced by Yusuzu when she whispered something in her ear and left rather quickly, making the other women both curious at what Yusuzu refused to tell them what she said, and a good round of laughter at the poor deity's plight. All the while, young Naruto Uzumaki was having an increase in red chakra surrounding him. A minute before, Kami finished her blessing, the Kaiu Nuyuko, the great nine-tailed demon fox, the lord of all demons of the realm, was having a bad day. No, let's rephrase that. The great demon fox was having a shittiest, worst day that he can plainly recall since being sealed into a human gaki by the Yandai Hokage 6 decrepit years ago. And that's saying something since it's forced to live in a sewer. Now the fox had no love for its container, but sympathy, yes, and plenty of it. If the fox wasn't sleeping in the dreary sewer, it was looking at the boy's memories. It started out as something to do to pass the endless stream of boredom the fox felt. However, it soon turned to curiosity and sometimes rage. Rage for the fact that people were calling its container warden and ultimate jailer as the demon or Kaobi and confusing him with the gaki. And sympathetic rage for how people treated its container. For even a demon wouldn't treat a kid like that, but also curiosity. Its container didn't hold an ounce of animosity towards any of the village for it. Instead, its container seemed to want prove all of them wrong and do the best that he can to plate the wrong that they felt. He did. And the fox had to admit with grudging respect that the boy was good at hiding. This drove the fox to study its container and keep an eye on him. Although there was a second reason as well. The fox loathed admitting it, but its survival rested on the tiny shoulders of the blonde-haired child. Every once in a while, some villagers and occasionally some ninja would hurt the boy. In some way, shape, or form. Some really bad, but normally nothing terrible. Despite the occasional broken bone or a short beating, and that was nothing the fox couldn't help with, even with the boys. Kami forsaken seal keeping him in, he found he was at least allowed to indirectly protect himself from harm. However, now the great demon fox was pumping chakra into the boy for dear life, wondering if the kid could hold long enough for his grandfather figure or someone else to come save them both, or they would surely die this night. Come on, Gaggy. I don't think you can hear me, but for the love. Kami, hold on. You don't want to die in front of your potential mates, do you? The fox tried to encourage. What a way for us to go. It's not even his fault. The fox's attention went to the two seals as it was starting to glow, and it felt an old chakra that he would never feel again return. The fox had practically memorized both seals of his cage from being in here so long, but even he never saw them glow. The second seal completely disappeared in tatters to the surprise and slight curious glee of the fox. Then he noticed that the four small circles near the right upper corner of the original seal start to turn and felt his chakra spike. Plus, his chakra started to flow more evenly and better through the seal. And with more chakra now too. His still curious glee. He started pumping it like crazy. Then he felt his old chakra return, much to the fox's joy and curiosity, but he decided to dwell on that later. Mused the fox in slight admiration. I don't know how, but the human's annoying. First seal is destroyed. Now I can pump him with more chakra, and if that one spinning circle is what I think it is, we may make it yet, yelled the fox in glee in his head as he started repairing his container. And Naruto Uzumaki. I feel that human's grandfather figure and several other familiar signatures approaching. Should I interfere with what I believe is about to happen, or do I wait and see where this goes? Thought the fox. Honest curiosity as well as years of imprisonment of boredom in a sewer finally overrode the fox's survival instinct. I can now always pump Enough chakra to stabilize him. So, it to hell and let's see where this goes. Laughed the fox in his head. If only he knew how destiny changed drastically by this simple decision the fox made and by the 5 deities above. I wish I could see their faces. But it looks like we're heading for the unknown. Thought the fox with a mischievous gleam in his eyes before it started laughing loudly. When the Hokage and his group came to the rooftop overlooking the scene, Sarutobi wasted no time. Cat, dog, head to the entrance of the alley. Don't let anyone in or out. Hi, you're with me. They all nodded and were all leaking massive amounts of killing intent. Everyone jumped to their stations while the Hokage and Hiashi jumped down in front of the group who had started to back away some when Naruto had started heavily leaking out the fox's orang-ish red chakra. The mob started getting more frightened when they saw the Hokage. But before they could say anything, the Hokage addressed them. You all should be ashamed of yourselves, hurting innocent children who did absolutely nothing to you. He beard angrily and fiercely. This seemed to get the mob going again. Why, Hokage-sama, do you protect the fox that murdered so many? Quote, yelled a very large man with thick sideburns. There were a lot of calls for agreement on that. The fox killed my brother, yelled one of the civilians in the back. The fox killed my niece and uncle, yelled the only women in the group. More and more cries of agreement. He killed 2 of my friends, my mother and the Yandaime, yelled Tai. Which only spurred the calls on. The Hokage had had enough and pointed to the 2 Chunin. You 2 were stripped of your ninja rank for attacking innocent kids. You 2. And the rest of you should have more faith in the Yandaime seal. If Nar was the fox, he would have killed us all 6 years ago, he explained. The 2 ninjas and the civilians were shocked for attacking an innocent girl. You all are under arrest for attacking the Hyuga eras. You all will pay retributions to the Hyuga family and do hard labor. He then took a deep breath. The mob started to feel uneasy. The Hokage had a dark look on his face, but continued for harming our village's hero who is keeping the fox at bay. As well the crimes of attempted murder of a minor child abuse. Disturbing the peace and the harming of a clan head of 4 clans. The Uzumaki clan, the Namikaze clan, the Senju clan, and the Jikado clan, and the attempted complete genocide of 3 of these clans, and the attempted murder of the last male of all 4 of these clans. I sentence you all to death. The shocked group didn't even have time to fully register what the Hokage said as Kana and Ninja Stars took out all of them in the blink of an eye. Hiashi looked stunned and the ANBU had tell signs of that as well. Sir, is he really, began Kat before the Hokage cut her off. What you heard here is an SSS class secret that can't be told to anyone or death will be the least of your worries. Is that clear? The fire in Sarutoba's eyes at this declaration sent shivers down all their spines. Even Hiashi felt scared for the first time in a long time and even visibly cringed. All the 3 could do was nod. The 3rd Hokage didn't even see as he was trying to get to Nar. The fox's chakra was active only for a couple of seconds, but now his blue chakra was mixing into the now visible wave of chakras surrounding him and the 2 girls and was streaming out of him like a broken dam. The 3rd took 3 steps forward when the mixing chakra pushed him back 4. We had to get to them. My daughter is in there, said Hai, now refocused on the children. They felt other signatures rushing toward them from all sides, mostly of Jun's strength or higher, but it was not to be. A bright flash, Naruto, Junko, and Hinata were gone. The 4 ninja rushed to where they were, just as the lead elements made it on the scene. All the ANBU bowed. A group of ANBU got the Hogue's first order. Monkey and Wolf identify these bodies and get them to the morgue. You got 20 minutes and give me their names later after my meeting. And don't let the festival goers see you with the bodies. Dog, get me Rado, Namashi, Jen, Mashui, and Tiger here this instant. And when you come to my office, stay. You as well, Cat. After you fetch Shikaku, Nara, Aoba Yamashiro, and Enko Mitarashi and bring them to my office. They bowed before shunning away. The aged Hokage then addressed a tuna-masked Danbu. Tuna, bring me Jen. And Kosuke Maruboshi Chunin Manabu Akado and Dr. Dyuhar to my office. Tell Kozan and Manabu-san about their granddaughter and that she is okay. Then you stay as well. Like the others, he bowed before shunning away. The Hokage then turned to the others and looked around. Horse, you will remain at the alley entrance and no one gets entry after I leave. You may go after the last body is cleaned and you clean the area. All Chunin can leave and all Anbu and Junin will be on call for 24 hours. Spread the word except the elders and clan heads. Dismissed, the old Hokage yelled. All the ninja left immediately, leaving him in the clearing with the horse and guarding the entrance as the monkey and wolf reappeared quickly, took a body, and shunshined away again. The third turned to a once again panicked Hiashi. Let's head to my office. I'll explain there. Hiashi nodded. They started running along the rooftops. They made it halfway to the Hogue's office when a flash of smoke appeared in front of them and were instantly on guard. They sighed in relief when the smoke cleared and showed a small old-looking green toad with a red and white vertically stripped snow hat and scarf and black circular glasses. Hi, I'm Waldo and Master Jiraiya has told me to inform you that the 3 children that you are looking for have ended up into a protected waterfall and the 2 others not of the legacy are shook up but okay and that the legacy is being taken care of by a doctor and that Jiraiya himself will bring them back when he heals as well as giving you a full report on his actions and this incident when he returns. What should I tell him? Hiashi let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, so did the old Hokage who in turn looked at Hiashi at the same time thinking he could help his old friend and counterpart Osumu into Tigakure with his slight money problem. Getting the hint, Hiashi said, it is fine if it's Jera-sensei is protecting them. My daughter wanted to explore anyway, and if there are Kumo nins still hunting for a free Hyuga, she will be safer with him. So the decision is purely yours, Hokage-sama. The Hokage nodded and addressed the toad summons. Waldo-san told Jiraiya-kun that is a fine and agreeable course of action and that the Hagen head also agrees. But do not come back until the legacy is fully healed and all right. As well as that we will be sending a sum of money by Kakashi soon that is going to help him in Waterfall. For all expenses and to give them all the money no matter what and not to leave until he gets there. Plus that Kosuke and Manabu should be fine with this course of action. As well. The old green toad bowed with a will do and puffed back to Jiraiya. With that, we got a meeting to get to Hiashi, so let's inform the others, spoke the Hokage with relief in his voice. Hai nodded and they started running again to Sarutoba's office. Before they walked into the door, the Hokage summoned a hidden Anbu and told him to send word that the uncalled Junin and Anbu alert order be canceled and also told his secretary that she could go home for the day. When the Hokage and Hiashi walked into his office, all the people he asked for were present and accounted for. They all bowed before the Hokage could start. Kosuke standing next to a very worried Manabu, who looked just as panicked as Hiashi once was asked, Hokage-sama, I was told my granddaughter is all right. Where is she? Half begged, half requested Kosuke in his usual mess shirt and brown wool vest, black ninja shoes, black ninja pants, an old gray tanto on his back and white ninja tape on his ankles. He looked as old as the Hokage and had gray hair with a small ponytail on the top of his head. My old friend, that is why we're here. She from what I last saw of her before she was unintentionally teleported away, was unharmed. And the message I received says she's fine. That is also why I called this meeting. That's why I called you all specifically here, explained the Hokage with a determined the windows. Manabu and Kosuke let out breaths they didn't realize they were holding. As the Hokage was doing those things, the dog-masked ANBU removed his mask only to see a young-looking ninja with a half-masked face, a leaf headband over his left eye, and a better view of his silver gravity-defying hair. The purple-haired Ambik Kunoichi removed her cat mask to show a pretty young female ninja with matching purple eyes. The burly tuna-masked ANBU removed his mask to show a male in what appears to be his early 30s. He was bald, had a small scar under his left eye, going diagonally down to the middle of his cheek, tall, no eyebrows, and a small butt. Pointed dark brown pencil-thin mustache. He pulled out a gray ninja headband and started putting it around his neck. But during the whole thing, he looked calm and curious. The tiger-masked ANBU removed his mask to show a ninja headband on his head with face guards that was gray and similar to the one that the second Hokage used to wear, and a ninja shirt over his chin and spiky brown hair and big brown eyes. Shikaku in his Junin vest and uniform and lazy atmosphere and look asked lazily. Lord Hokage May asked what this troublesome problem may be. Sir Toby could literally see the gears in Shikaku's head working, and knew he probably figured some of the details out. The Hokage opened a drawer on his desk, got out his pipe, stuffed it with his favorite tobacco, lit it, and took a big puff. The Hokage just looked at the assembled group, some of which were getting antsy, and spoke very casually. What I'm about to tell you all is between an A rank and SSS rank village secret. All of you assembled either know some of the facts, most of the details. None of you all know some of what the others know. Not everyone who knows everything is here. Not all that know some things are here. And none of you all know all the details and facts. Yet, you all know who Naruto's parents are. This straightened everyone up. Some of you even might have figured some of this other stuff to be revealed out. It would have been nice if Murakumo, Jiraiya, and were here as well. Murakumo and his family are on vacation in Hotring country and should be back in 2 days. Whereabouts are unknown, but I'll talk to Jiraiya about that when he returns, which should be soon. Jiraiya as well though already knows all this, but we will get to him in a minute. Simply put, young Naruto Uzumaki has activated one of his bloodlines. There was silence for a moment, but surprise was evident on several people's faces. What does this have to do with my granddaughter? Hokage-sama asked Manabu, still in a slight panic. He had the typical Tunin flag jacket over a fancy brown vest and white t-shirt and light green tie under the brown fancy L-looking civilian vest. He also had small circular glasses with no earpieces and shaggy thick brown hair and a medium long brown mustache that ever so slightly went off his face. He was average height if not leaning on the short side and thin. His leaf headband was over his forehead, but the leaf symbol part was over the right side of his head, and he looked to be in his early or middle 40s. Serby sighed. I think it would be better to show you all and then I'll answer questions and explain fully what is going on. He then motioned everyone to the crystal ball which was still on his desk and activated it, showing what was last seen on it. The killing intent flooding the office would have killed any civilian, and Kosuke and Manabu were giving off more than anyone else. Even after already witnessing it before, the Hokage Hiyashi and the damasked dog and cat masked ANBU still let some release. Good thing that there was an anti-killing release seal mixed into the privacy seals, so no one felt it outside the office. After things quieted down and people got their bearings, the Hokage spoke first. The crowd was condemned to death by me and Jiraiya sent a toad to me on my way here with Hiashi. Simply put, he was apparently doing some business in Tigakure and sent a cryptic message that we easily understood. It stated that Hinata and your granddaughter, Junko, Kosuke, and Manabu are just a little shaken, but okay, and that Nar is in stable condition. There were many signs of relief at that. Hi. And I informed the summons that delivered the message that they could stay there until Naruto was okay to travel and that Jiraiya himself would bring them back while the village would pay for any fees that might occur. Is this acceptable to you, Kosuke-san? And Manabu-san? Manabu was hunched over in pure relief and simply nodded. I'll explain this to my daughter Aries so she doesn't have a panic attack. While Kosuke nodded in agreement, the Hokage nodded then in understanding. Shikaku then asked a question that had been bugging him. Hokage, I can tell this is going to be really troublesome, but you said one of his bloodlines. What did you mean? Then the Hokage straightened himself out and got his business face on and went into his professor of all shinobi look and continued to answer Shikaku's question. I will also explain what I meant by some of you knowing some and none of you knowing all and the red and black taped secrets of some of this. However, as some of the most trusted and best qualified ninjas in Konoha, I must ask you to take an oath to never reveal what I'm about to tell you unless I, Naruto or Jiraiya, give you permission. Can you swear this oath of silence? No hesitation was needed as all the gathered ninja said, Hi, Lord Hokage. Serbi just sighed and started rubbing his temples before continuing. First, I would like as little interrupting as possible until I finish and to say that Jiraiya and I are the only one besides you very soon who knows the full story. Soon will be informed and this will hopefully convince her that all is not lost and to return to the village. Knowing her, she'll come first. What you know of Naruto's heritage is not all of it. Yes, Nar is the last Namikaze and is the son of Kusha and Minato. However, Minato grew up in an orphanage, for he couldn't yet claim his birthright in his house, for he wasn't 15 yet or graduated the ninja academy and became a full-fledged ninja like our laws dictate. Though when he did, he started some research into his family outside the Namikaze clan. I told him what I know about his father and mother, but even I was shocked by the results, as well as Kosa's revelations on her ancestry when Minato told me his. This happened 3 nights before Kosa gave birth. Kusha was sent to us on the eve of Konoha's greatest shame. That being Konoha not making it in time of our greatest ally, Usuzu Shiogakure. In which she is the only known survivor from Uzuzu was always known for the Uzumaki clan. However, there were 2 other clans that were smaller than the Uzumaki, just as famous and also wiped out. The rivals of the Uzumaki, known as the Jakato clan, which settled in Uzu a few years after its founding and were the holders of the water shaper bloodline that allowed them to shape water easily. Really, it was an advanced water affinity that they all seemed to have naturally as part of the bloodline. And plainly the command of such water. The Uzumaki were known for their Fuenjutsu, in which they were the grand masters of that art as the Jakato clan were masters of the water arts. A friendly rivalry sprang up that became heated and then turned sour. As the Uzumaki who lived long lives became mostly the champion of one day about 39 years before Konoha was formed. A very small nomadic clan of samurai falling on hard times called the Yamafuji clan was almost overwhelmingly attacked by bandits. They were saved swiftly by the Isukage of Usuzu Shiogakure and the first Izukage. Haruhiro Uzumaki, who with others of his clan stumbled upon the fight as it started. While on a mission to kill or capture the bandits by the daimyo of what we know as Wave Country. Neither the Yamafuji nor the Uzumaki had a single causality. The Yamafuji, which is the only known samurai clan to have women in its ranks and were really a samurai and ninja hybrid clan. Noting that fact in their ragged and desperate state, Haruhiro offered to let them set up a clan in Uzu land and money to get back on their feet. Yori Yamafuji, the clan head at the time, as well as the other members of the clan, were so thankful for the offer and saving their lives in the surprise attack that they stubbornly offered to become the Uzumaki clan bodyguards as an eternal thanks for what they did. At this point, the Serbi laughed before continuing in mirth. The Uzumaki were also very stubborn and didn't want the extra protection and explained that they were a bigger clan than the Yamafuji could protect. Still not giving up on their honor, they explained they reproved to the Uzumaki that they would in turn just protect Haruhiro, who despite being the Isukage was also the clan head of the Uzumaki and part of the main family as well as the daimyo, and simply be bodyguards to the main family of the Uzumaki. Finally, the Uzumaki relented but set on the chance that they start only after the Yamafuji finished settling into Uzu, in which the Yamafuji agreed. The Hokage took a breath and continued, noticing his shocked audience in detail for the first time. He figured Shikaku had pretty much figured out what was what so far to a main degree, with Kosuke and Genma not far behind. Nonetheless, he continued, as you all can imagine, the Jikado clan was not happy that the main house of the Uzumaki clan had a different clan of bodyguards. There was no sign of a civil war, but the small island country definitely hit a rough patch. The Jikado clan's clan head, Denjiro, who was an elderly man, decided to fix things with a proposal. He was very sly and knew that Haruhiro's grandson Toshiya and his daughter Hosako, a main family Jikado member, were seeing each other in private and did not like the way things were going in the country with the rough patch. So, he decided to offer his daughter with the agreement of her and Toshiya to combine the families and with accordance with Yori Yamafuji. If the main two families were united and swore an oath of non-aggression and pure peace, then the now restrengthened Yamafuji clan would be honored to protect both main families. All clan members of all three clans accepted, and Hakako and Toshiya were married happily. The families became really close and started a game and party night every 4 months with all three clans can attend. Peace on the island nation reigned then on for years. And after Toshiya's uncle Hiji retired as the second Isukage and Toshiya himself took up the title, Hakako gave birth to a girl named Kusha. The whole island celebrated, and a few more years passed and peace continued to bloom until they were attacked by the combined forces of Eva, Kumo, and Amikir. We first got word of their plight when a young male samurai lieutenant from the Yamafuji named Ishio came bearing a letter of help. We tried to talk him into staying, but he wouldn't listen. He said he was honor-bound to go back. Not long after that, Gasha came with all three clans' scrolls, important documents, list of all Uzu Shioakir residents and ninja, and all three clans' entire wealth and the 4 sacred weapons of Yusuzu Shioakir, a plea for help, and some personal documents and letters and instructions on the wealth. We were going to help them when the next day Iwa and Kumo attacked Fire Country and we were forced to turn them back and watch Kiri's border as they sent random attacks toward everyone. As far as we know, only Kusha was the only survivor of Uzu Shioakir. She was literally the princess of Uzu by Yusuzu Shiokar's laws and was the last of 2 clans. She herself had the water shaper bloodline but rarely if at all used it, and instead used her water affinity with her prowess in Kenjutsu that even the famed Yamapuji were impressed by. What is also not common knowledge was that only the main house of the Uzumaki in which Kusha was the heir had the Uzumaki duo bloodline. All Utsuaki had the bloodline of a fast healing factor and long vitality, but only the main house is known to have that in chakra chains, and Naruto is her son. It took some of the room who wasn't at the mob scene a minute to fill in the blanks. Some got it immediately, and even the one at the mob scene where God smacked Genma, who was in his usual attire of a blue bandana with a leaf headband and blue ninja cargo pants and Junin flag jacket, and had brown hair and wearing blue ninja shoes. The typical leaf ninja tunin and Junin clothes minus the headband, was so shocked that the Senbon needle in his mouth fell out and landed on the floor, and was the only noise heard for at least 2 minutes. Rao, who had what looked to be a burn scare plastered on the right side of his face and similar attire to Genma, and had brown spiky hair. Aoba dressed in tradition Kona Hajin outfit and red-rimmed sunglasses on his face, and Anko, who was wearing her tan trench coat over a mesh shirt, black ANBU pants and blue ninja shoes, were gaping like fish. Aoba's glasses almost fell off his face. The other people there had equal shock on their faces, which made Sarobi chuckle a bit and wish for a camera, especially concerning Hiyashi, Haro, Aoba, and Shikaku's faces. 4 men known to never lose their cool. Finally, the once cat-masked ANBU named Yugo Isuki spoke up. Are you saying that Naruto's got the bloodline of Kasha-sensei and the Jikado clan on top of the Hishin? I didn't even know the Hishin was a bloodline. Serbi nodded, causing a new round of gawking, but he wasn't finished yet. We'll get to the Hishin in a minute, but no, he has one other bloodline as well. He has a very high chance at having the Moten ability as well. Sarutobi threw out there with a sigh before he started counting in his head. 3, 2, 1. What? Yelled out practically all the room. After another brief pause, the once tunmasked ANBU named Haru Amaki had to ask, are you sure, Lord Hokage? And how does he have that? Before Sarutobi could answer, Shikaku spoke up again. It was one of Minato's parents, wasn't it? All eyes turned to him, and he seemed still lazy, but with an atmosphere of surprise and shock around him as he continued. It was probably his mother, from what I can put together. Am I right, Hokage-sama? The third nodded while then continuing the story. Yes, Shikaku. The Senju clan head after Tobarama sensei Koshi Senju didn't like that Toki Senju's daughter Amaya Senju married into their rivals the Namikaze clan, and though didn't disown her, hushed it up. Both clans were very small by this point, and the Namikaze didn't want to start something and didn't feel like rocking the boat, I could say, and said nothing of the fact that Amaya came from the Senju clan. Amaya married the then Namikaze heir Shui Namikaze, and they eventually had Minato. Amaya was a younger cousin of Sori Senju by 15 years, and Suri was Midito's daughter. Sori had 2 children named Noki and Sununade. So in a nutshell, Naruto is Sununade's cousin, and his aunt and Minato didn't find out until 3 days before Kusha gave birth due to a wide range circumstances. The silence in the room was longer this time, but then Shikaku took the floor again. How do you know he's got those bloodlines? Hokage-sama. The Hokage then motioned for Dr. Yuhara to speak up, in which he picked up in an instant while all eyes turned to him. He was very short, had black hair with gray highlights, a doctor's coat over a Junin vest, and black ANBU medical corps pants which looked like normal ANBU pants but with more pockets, and black ninja shoes and a stethoscope over his neck. He looked to be in his early 50s. A lot of this is new to me, but I knew Naruto's whole heritage. I'm the Hogue's personal doctor. I'm also been assigned that same title to Naruto Uzumaki. Minato, in case he died, left a letter addressed to Sarutobi with a blood seal that would only open for him or Jiraiya. The letter had instructions on part of it as all I was informed on his heritage to test for potential bloodlines on the secrecy of death. I found that he does have the entire Uzumaki bloodlines, the Hiroshian bloodlines fast travel, and the Jakato bloodlines water shaper. After the first Hokage Hashiyama, there has been no one else with the Moten ability. Sununade only had a 13% chance of having it, if that, an equal chance to pass it on if she had kids. Noki, before he was Kia, had a better chance with 67.1% to pass it on. But more or less same chance to have it. Nar, on the other hand, scored a 96.4% in the chance that he could have it, and or equal chance that he could pass it on, if not a % more. We checked all the necessary blood samples we had and he is 120% confirmed to be the heir or potential heirs of all of these clans. Genes don't lie. Normally bloodlines don't mix like this, but through my independent study approved by Hokage-sama, I found that the Uzumaki genes seem to allow multiply bloodlines to be added onto a person. The Uzumaki clan was huge, and it was very rare for a member to marry outside the clan, but there wasn't a rule against it. They just didn't do it much. And as far as we know, Kusha was the only one to be the child of an Uzumaki and an outside bloodline wielder. On the other hand, we still don't know if he definitely has the Moten as an ability yet, for that is a rare, if not tricky to basur about, for the Senju Veer. Why secretive, and only Sade can tell us and or let us have access to the Senju clan scrolls on such an event. She left though 2 years before Minato did his wonderful but solemn 1 year in office. He finished with recollection in his eyes. After a brief moment of silence, the once tiger-masked ANBU named Tenzo Yamato, who during the good doctor's talk, people in the room were periodically staring at, spoke up. Since mine's transplanted, I can't answer how he can activate it if he has it. But am I here to possibly train him or something if he does? He asked curiously. This also got the attention in the other members in the room and some realization. The Hokage smiled in a way that meant something. The problem was for the people in the room or if it was something they going to like. The Hokage started to chuckle before composing himself once again and speaking seriously yet. Started out regretful. I have failed Nar. I really have. That does not mean I have to continue with that path. None of you here are Nar haters. Though the village has scorned him and doesn't know the difference between the tea and the cup. The legacy he has is great, yet he despised while his family is glorified. So I as your Hokage am asking, not ordering you all, some of the most trusted ninja in the village to help an old man out. Jiraiya will probably make amends with Nar in his own way. But for me, I'm asking you for help with Nar. An extension you will be helping him by training, keeping an eye on him, support and political help and pull. But my question is, will you grant it? This threw people in the room for a loop of surprise. The Hokage realized he couldn't do this alone and was asking for help. Kakashi was first and said with his patented eye smile, "Hi, Hokage-sama." Others followed suit with Shikaku, then Enko, and all the way down the line, all with grins and smiles. The Hokage nodded and said, "Thank you all. We will change this village for the better and with the will of fire." Now, I'm assuming that since the Namikaze clan is still alive with an heir, that the Hyuga and Nar clans are still clan allies. This got a nod from Hiashi and lazy nod but with a smile from Shikaku. Good. Then that may help us in the long run. Now if Nar does get the Moten, I would like Tenzo to train him with it. That will be done in secret as will most of the training that takes place. I don't want that stick in the mud Danzo getting Nar or people in general. Finding out about his abilities. They should come out gradually or until Nar becomes Chunin. I will announce it and his abilities if he so desires after he makes Chunin. I have no doubt that the moment we ask Nar if he wants to become a ninja he will say yes. That got a round of chuckles from some of the others in the room. I will be paying all the trainers continuous C rank pay and a letter of accommodation after acceptable completion for ongoing training for Nar. If Nar doesn't have the Moten then Tenzo will become the assistant to Kakashi in training Nar in basic Enjutsu, Genjutsu and Taijutsu, and you two can plan accordingly. Also, Yugo, if you would be so kind to teach him a weapon, if he wants, that would be great as well. I do have his family's sword. The three nodded while Yugo looked the happiest the Hokage or anybody has ever seen. And then Sarutobi turned to Haru. Haru, I would like you to teach him Fuenjutsu as the ANBU Fuenjutsu specialist, and ex-commander of the Konohabara Corps. He doesn't seem to have a lot of patience, but both his parents were Fu and Jutsu masters and it is in his blood and so at pretty high odds that he has skill in it. You will also be working with Kakashi and Jiraiya on that. Anko, you will eventually teach him survival skills and traps, assassination, and anything you deemed fit for him since you're the best at those fields. You also could eventually help Tenzo and Kakashi with basics and fitness. He got 2 nods and an evil smirk that was not missed by anyone. Though no one, not even the Hokage, wanted to comment on. Now for Aoba, Rado, and Genma. I know you are the only ones left in Konoha who know a duplicate form of the Hishin. Most people don't realize that the Hishin is a bloodline. Hell, I'd eat my hat that no one even knows that. If I recall correctly, it takes 2 of you since you don't have the bloodline to move one of you and all 3 of you to move a person or object long distances. The Hirishin works as a bloodline, as a space-time enjutsu first found in Minato's grandfather, Junichi. It works like a teleportation, but you 3 and the 4th found a way around that too. Let you guys use it. Am I right? And explain the rest, please, if you can. They nodded to each other before Rao spoke. The 4th told us not to say anything about it unless it was in your company, and it was about Naruto, but I think these are unique circumstances, and he probably wouldn't mind. What Genma? I and Aoba use as an artificial form of the Hishian. You could say reverse engineered. It's not a true Hishian and it takes 2 or 3 of us depending on the situation. The 4th found it acceptable to teach Genma and me this so that we could help him in battle and for protection and fast travel to his location and similar ideas. He taught us a well-guarded seal that destroys itself when we are done with it. It's more of a teleportation jutsu with a yellow flash. Genma here feeds me chakra and I add his and some of mine into the seal that the 4th taught us to make and it teleports me to the location of a sister seal to the one we have from point A to point B. Pure teleportation. The yellow flash was added to the seal by the 4th so no one would guess it's a bloodline. That's also why he had weird kunai. The kunai also stuck to the ground better and had better hand-to-hand capabilities than traditional kunai. He told us that his father and grandfather couldn't master the bloodline, so no one but his clan really knew it was one. People assumed it was a jutsu of great proportions. Minato made this seal purely so he could get anywhere, especially places that he can't see. Genma took it form there now with another Senbon needle in his mouth. Not seeing something as the flaw with the bloodline. So you have to add your blood to the seal to get it to work. Blood seals are more powerful than ink, and that really helps. It sends an unbreakable and invisible chakra feedback to the person who activated the seal, even if they themselves didn't throw the seal. The reason it takes two of us is because one person has to hold point while the other heads to point B. The fourth explained to us that it was a bloodline simply because the Hiroshin messes with that person's chakra to tear open a space between spaces and teleport to that point that they sense even if they can see it. It literally opens up the space-time barrier, but you can't go back in time. The fast travel bloodline also makes that person point A, so it doesn't need to have a second person to help you. Minato-sama told us that there will most likely always need a seal to help you navigate the space-time barrier, but a true master of the bloodline could transport to the places that he or she knows best without the seal. Also, being fast helps to transport people or things outside of us since we three were the only ones that had that ability added to the seals. All three of us had to hold onto ourselves around that person or object and put the seal on them and direct them to the other seal. It's teleportation at its finest, but only used in emergencies since most of the seals are gone and it takes a lot of chakra. After he finished, there was a look of awe everyone's faces. No wonder no one was as good as you, added Minato. Or besides these three have ever truly mastered it, the Hokage thought. Then he turned to the still awed and thinking group and addressed them. For the record, that explanation is most likely written down to similar effect in the Namikaze clan scroll. So that is private. I would like you all to understand that. Now, Kakashi, you will at some point in time need to put Naruto's speed up at some point as a priority. And Genma, Aoba, and Rao will teach Naruto the Hiroshin when the time comes. They all nodded while Genma, Aoba, and Rao looked really pleased. It wasn't much known, but Genma, Aoba, and Rao were the unofficial students of the Yandaime and had the highest respect and devotion for him, and were also good friends of Kakashi through it. To get a chance with Kakashi included on this to teach the Yandai son his dad's stuff that they taught him was the biggest honor that they could have gotten. Lastly, the Hokage turned to Kosuke and Manabu. You two are part of the same family. He started getting Kosuke and Manabu's attention. Better odds than not he will need some guidance here and there. As advanced knowledge you two poses would be great if you guys gave him tips here and there and you can train him on your downtime if you'd like. It would also be nice if he could have a home to have a nice dinner at here and there since I will invite him over to mine. But it just so happens that the apartment building that he owns is right next to your home. So if you could keep an eye on him for me with your daughter, that would be nice. Manabu and Kosuke smiled and nodded. But it was Kosuke who spoke for Naruto. Anything. He saved my granddaughter and protected his friends. I will do what I can. Surbi nodded before turning to Manabu. He'll get the same treatment as our daughter. Like you, I gained a grandson. Surbi chuckled at that before drawing it to a close. Now we can show the village what Naruto could really possibly do despite their ignorance. Now Nar has some political backing and some good trainers, watchers, and guardians. Hi Ashi and Shikaku, I will be sending you a summons when Murakumo returns for I will fill him in on this. Kakashi, I would also like for you to come back here in 2 days. For I have a B rank mission for you. You go. I will talk to you in morning. Be here, please, at 10 a.m. I'll send you all memos when it's time for your teaching sessions. That as long as it won't kill him and isn't too lax, you're free to do at your discretion. Now it's late and he stopped when he noticed Hiashi had his hand up and was white as a sheet. Yes, Hiashi-san. What can I do for you? Asked the agent Hokage gently, trying to figure out what this was about and why he had his hand up since he figured he covered all the bases. Getting straight to the point, Hiashi had to ask. When Tsunade finds out what her last living relative was treated like and as a kid to boot, how much damage do you think she will cause and who will she kill? A collective with one troublesome was said by everyone in the room. Sarobi after calming everyone down, assuring Kosuke, Manabu, and Hiyashi that they would be the first to get information on their daughter and granddaughter respectfully, and making a mental note to look into the main village's insurance information, told them all to go home, to take the night off, and or enjoy the festival. They all started leaving the room with order. Not before Shikaku asked who would like a drink after that story, in which Kakashi, Rao, Genma, Haro, Aoba, Drive, Yuhara and Tenzo agreed. Yugo and Anko left to find their friends Karini, Hana, and Hayate, with Kosuke and Manabu going home to talk to their daughter-in-law, and Hiyashi talking to his wife and brother. Leaving a flustered Serbi left in the room, sighing with the thought, that went better than expected now to keep Danzo and the council on the down low. He then put his crystal ball away and left for the original quiet evening he was hoping for, and thinking about a good night's sleep. All the while in Tigakure, things were happening. Due to Nar having physical contact with Junko and Hinata, they were transported with Nar to his unattended destination. And it took Nar around 5 seconds to get to that unknown destination. He lay in the corner of a large room with a single dimmed light over a plain war room-styled table with a dozen brown leather chairs in the center. All in all, it looked pretty plain. Naruto himself was lying on the floor on his stomach, with blood pooling. Junko was lying to his right and Hinata to his left on their stomachs as well, and were stirring. But Hinata got up first. The first conscious thoughts that Junko had when she got up was wondering where she was, then seeing a large pool of blood and Hinata crying and shaking someone with bright yellow hair. Then shocked before all her memories came flying back to her and tears started forming in her own eyes. Rushing over to their sides, she immediately tried to put pressure on Naruto's major stomach wounds, but the two kunai were still deeply embedded. Hinata reached over to take them out, but her hand was immediately slapped away by Junko. Don't, Hinata. If you take those out, it could kill him, explained a now crying Junko to a stunned Hinata. My mom works as a nurse at Kona's hospital. She taught me some first aid. She explained that objects like the kani, they're embedded too deep to just yank out. We need to stop the bleeding. Through her tears, and after taking off and tearing up parts of her brown vest, she starting to put pressure on parts of the wounds. She calmed Hinata down from her near panic attack a little and got her to help. She instructed Hinata to rip off her Yakuta's sleeves and instructed her to add pressure to another bad wound. Junko stopped crying with a look of determination in her eyes. She liked to read her mom's study books since her mom was trying to become a doctor, but even she was surprised to see some of the minor wounds and parts of some of the major ones starter fully close. Knowing that wasn't possible at the rate it was going. She also could have sworn that there was an orang-ish glow on some of the inner wounds. She shook her head. She would think about that at another time. She had someone to help, she told herself. She also was versed enough that she knew that she needed to get help even if she didn't know where she was at. But she knew that someone had to get help. So she turned to Hinata, who was still crying a little. Hinata, Junko said, getting the still shocked girl's attention. You need to leave this room and get someone or Naruto-kun's going to die. Can you do this while I try to stop the bleeding? Hinata looked at Nar, wiped away her tears, and had a determined look on her face. Now, and with a nod rushed out of the room, while Junko tried to put more pressure on Naruto's stomach wound without messing with the still deeply embedded kani. Hinata, for her part, was searching for a person that was currently going rather fruitlessly. She kept opening doors and calling, help. Afterwards, most of The rooms she looked into looked like simple bedrooms with a simple wooden desk, a wooden chair or two, and two simple wooden beds. The last room was a kitchen with a pantry being next door. She finally realized that no one was in any of the rooms. So, to stop wasting time, she tried to find a way through the maze of hallways through her limited use of her Bakugan. She didn't know how long she was going through the rooms until she came to the end of a hall and saw a big door that showed light was coming out the bottom of it. And curiously enough, she couldn't see through it with her Bakugan. In pure desperation, she swung open the door and screamed, "Help! Please! I need help! He's dying!" Osumu Sakita, the leader of Tigakir, was having one of those days. Paperwork, reports of possible sabotage to his defenses, increased. Possible export prices, paperwork. His advisor, Suian's constant complaining. Paperwork, and problems with his niece Fu. That last one is exactly why he invited his very close old friend, Serbi's pupil, Jiraiya, over to look at the seal placed on his niece Fu. Sometimes Osumu really wished that his brother Oza, and his wife, Yui, and Osumu's beloved wife, Suko, hadn't died in that mysterious fire that burnt down their house. There was what happened before that caused problems in a rift between him and his brother's wife. Tigakir's head doctor and an old friend of Osumu's drive, Hikaru Fujimaki, a man who was also Tigakir's resident seal specialist as well and the one who placed Tigakir's biggest burden into Fu. Their last Ginuriki disappeared due to the hate, and instead of coming back, the Nabi did. Osumu knew that their past Ginuriki was dead, but was still rather shocked that the Nabi came back. Surprised as well. However, the Nabi didn't attack the village, but came too close for comfort. And had to be sealed. At least no one died in that aspect. It took him and his brother everything that they had to give time for Dr. Fujiaki to do his seal. The only child at the time capable of holding the burden was Fu, who was only 3 months old. Who knows if the Nabi would have attacked the village or not. Now, they were going to have a meeting between himself, Drive, Fujimaki, Fu, and Jiraiya to see if the seal needs worker is stable. Hikaru was proud of his work despite being Taki's head medical ninja. And although not exactly a seal master, was close enough to one, though close enough wasn't good enough. Plus, Fu was complaining about a voice in her head. And both Osumu and Hikaru agreed that it needed to be checked. So, finally getting in touch with Jiraiya, they asked for him to check Fu's specific Ginuriki seal. Both also wanted to secretly get Jiraiya to sign their Ica books since he was the author. The meeting commenced the moment Jiraiya came to town escorted by a tunin, and after Osumu and Hikaru got their books signed. Osumu was rubbing his gray and black hair as his long ponytail swayed. He was wearing blue ninja pants, a matching blue ninja shirt with white trim, a mesh undershirt below that, blue ninja shoes, a black shoulder guard on his left shoulder, and a salt and pepper goatee mustache combo. He was really worried that one of the last of his family was going to be taken over by the Nabi seven-tailed Beiju. Hikaru, who had grayish blonde hair and tan civilian shirt and pants, 2 scrolls attached to his side with black fishing boots and a mesh undershirt on, was walking ahead of him with his skipping 7. Niece Fu, who was wearing a short-sleeved baggy white shirt that overlapped her hands, a simple green skirt, and white ninja shoes. She had mint green hair and orange eyes. Osumu looked at her happy-go-lucky attitude and smiling as she was talking to Hikaru about food she liked and didn't, who in turn was just smiling at her. Osumu felt tired. He did everything he could to help her. Yet, most of the village was just plain afraid of her. They flat out ignored her and walked cautiously around her. She had no one to talk to except him, Shibuki, and Hikaru. He understood their fear, but it didn't mean he had to like it and the treatment she received. It must have shown on his face because he felt a hand on his right shoulder. While Hikaru noticed, but kept walking with a still skipping and oblivious food toward their destination to a sealing room in the Tiakir's emergency village bunker, which was unknown to her. Turning around, he looked at the understanding look from Jiraiya and at the same time pain in his eyes. Jiraiya had huge spiky white hair, 2 shoulder-length veins on the side of his face, with a rather large ponytail going out his back, and red lines going down his face from his brown eyes. He was wearing a horned forehead protector with a kanji for oil on it, and a huge scroll on his back. He had a wart on the left side of his nose, a green short shirt kimono, matching pants, and a mesh undershirt underneath it. And lastly, he had handguards, a black civilian-style belt, traditional ghettos, and a red haori with 2 simple yellow circles on the chest area. "Do you know someone similar?" asked Osumu casually with a hint of pain. A moment of silence descended upon the duo since Fu and Dr. Hikaru were now long out of sight. Finally, Jiraiya broke the silence that was beginning to become uncomfortable. "My godson, who doesn't even know I exist yet, is also a Ginuriki. Sensei told me that you know the details since you worked close to Minato as well. I sent Sarutobi Sensei a letter saying I was going to take over my duties as godfather when I get back later this month and that we'll talk about it. Nar shares the same problem Fu does, and from what I hear his situation is worse." Osumu flinched and didn't even want to think about it. Jiraiya Osumu started. "I still can't believe that such a legacy is being treated as such. And in what way? Ignorance seems to hold too much sway these days, and that is pathetic." Jera nodded. "Those reports, Osumu, are what convinced me to do what I should have done all along. I will take care of Nar and face my grief." Jiraiya finished rather solemnly. Osumu nodded, but Jiraiya wasn't done. "You're not the only one of those that Sensei confides in and has absolute trust in. For what it's worth, you're not the only person who has made mistakes and has regrets. Do what you can now for what counts, or we are no different than that." Pathetic ignorance. He then walked past Osumu, who stopped walking stunned. Jera only took a couple of steps forward when he heard laughing behind him, and he stopped to look behind him in slight surprise. Osumu, for his part, was bending forward laughing. After a moment of calming himself down, he started walking toward Jera and said, "Life is never simple. But overthinking things doesn't seem to help much either." Jera chuckled, and just as Osumu walked beside him, they both started walking toward the sealing room. It took them a minute to get there. They opened the door to see Fu still talking energetically to Dr. Fujimaki while kicking up and down her legs, one after the other, while sitting on a flat oval stone built into the floor. Dr. Hikaru for his part was smiling and was enjoying his time with his favorite patient. The oval stone in the center, which was used for sealing, was the only thing in the room besides another door on the other side of the room matching the one that Osumu and Jiraiya came from. Closing the door behind them, and before Osumu or Jiraiya could say anything, the other door flung open in a rather swift way and bouncing off the wall a little. Everyone looked surprised, and everyone but Fu recognized the little girl as a Haug. Though Fu tilted her head with her pointer finger on her month and said, help, please. I need help. He's dying." Hinata then saw that there was indeed people who for her part looked important. If only she knew. And quickly added, "He needs a doctor. Please save my friend." Before she started crying again, acting quickly with the call for help and the word dying. Drive. Fujimaki quickly rushed to Hinata's side with Jiraiya and Osumu a second behind, putting his hands on Hinata's shoulders as he kneeled down to look at her and to try to calm her down. Calm down, little one. Now tell me who's hurt and where they are, he asked calmly and with a smile. Brushing a tear from one of her eyes, Hinata spoke. My friend Narutkin is bleeding to death in a room somewhere down one of those halls. Please save him. The doctor had a calm expression on his face but saw the weird expression on Osuma's face when this Hyuga said Narutkin and grew suspicious with that, and when Jera immediately ran down the hall before the young Hyuga even finished. All right, what's your name? And is there anyone else with him? Asked Hikaru kindly. I'm Hinata Hyuga and our friend Junko is with him, she said. The doctor looked the young Hyuga in the eyes. It's going to be all right, Hinata-chan. We'll patch your friend up. Just show me where he is. Okay. Hinata nodded and with new determination directed them to where she remembered the room to be. Though going rather swiftly, they only made about halfway when they saw an angry Jiraiya carrying a young boy with blonde hair, covered in what the doctor recognized as life-threatening lacerations, probable fractures, burns, and who knows what. Fu looked shocked and was speechless, while Osumu looked mortified. How could people do something like this to a child? And his child no less. Could this happen to Fu in the future? Osumu thought, sickened. Jerry turned Nar over to the doctor. One very closer look at Nar. He saw the wounds closing. A little like Junko beforehand, but the blood loss was too terrible already, and he needed immediate surgery. They all didn't immediately notice Junko quietly sobbing behind Jiraiya. There's a fully stocked hospital a few halls down. I'll take him there immediately. Then he and Naruto fully sunshined away. Osumu did a hand sign and said, Shadow Clone Jutsu. And an identical clone of himself appeared. Turning to it, he said, Tell Sun and Shibuki that I will not be home tonight and will be back sometime in a week, and that we will have guests and that I am fine but doing something important. The clone saluted and then sunshined away. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed Fu still shocked but trying to comfort the other girls, while none of them noticed Jiraiya dismissing a frog with red and white striped clothing. But Osumu gave a look to Jiraiya, nodded, opened a door to a bedroom to his left, and then addressed Fu with a kind smile. Fu-chan, let's look for clothes for these girls, and why don't we go to the kitchen a hall down and fix some food for our unexpected guests, and you can show me how much you've improved. Okay. Fu looked thoughtful for a second and then looked at the girls her age and back to Osumu with a nod and a smile. Holding out his hand, Osumu took Fu's hand and started a debate with her on what they should cook. Jera watched them till they went around the corner and then looked at who was left. Both girls that he mused couldn't be more than 5 or 6 were looking at him with sad eyes. He swore to himself that when he gets back home there will be hell to pay. Just then, the head messenger frog, Waldo, reappeared, causing both girls to jump in shock. Jiraiya Sama, he bowed and said sarcastically. Jiraiya hated this. He didn't like being addressed with such honorifics, unless it was a gorgeous woman. And he knew Waldo was doing this purposely, since he's asked this toad like 1,000 times to stop calling him Sama sarcastically. Yet, he doesn't. A small smile graced the toad's face before finishing his report, but noticed the 2 girls and carefully relayed the message back by whispering to Jera. Hokage Sama agreed with everything you said, but to bring Naruto back when he was fine and healed. Kakashi will be here soon with money for Tigakure for any and all expenses, and to give them all the money no matter what. The Haya Patriarch was with him at the time and said his daughter was fine staying here as well as that Hokage Sama will talk to some guys named Kosuke and Manabu and that they should be fine with this decision. Well, that's my message. Call me when you need me, Jiraiya-sama. Then Waldo puffed away. That last part started getting Jiraiya to sweat to the point of completely ignoring the sarcastic Toad's ending comment. Excuse me, is your grandfathers named Kosuke Maruboshi and Manabu Akado? He asked while staring at Junko. Not seeing Jiraiya start to sweat, she nodded happily. Yes, Kosuke and Manabu are my Gigis and my name is Junko Maruboshi. Jiraiya inwardly groaned. The last time he got caught peeping in Konoha, he did itwhen Manabu's daughter Eri was taking a bath. Next too long ago, when he peeped on, it was his only other time he came close to death for peeping. He still had nightmares and is still wondering how she threw his telescope so fast and hit him so hard when she wasn't even a ninja. If that didn't happen, he would have made it scotch-free and he'd had to replace his favorite telescope, too. While also staying in the hospital for 2 weeks for most of the injuries she by herself delivered. Kosuke and Manabu weren't even that mad sattering that he got luckier than the last ones. Now he had one of his worst nightmares. His worst nightmare being Eri and Sunday chasing. And then beating him daughter and the most likely the Hyuga heiress and another of his ex-students' children as well he had to guard. Great. He had to behave on this trip but he still needed info. He thought depressingly sighing. He turned to each of the girls who looked exhausted and motioned them into the room that Osumu opened earlier. The room was like some of the ones that Hinata opened earlier. It had a plain wooden desk, 2 beds, and 4 simple wooden chairs. Jiraiya took a seat on one of the chairs while Junko and Hinata sat on the same bed looking like while both were covered in blood. Junko way more than Hinata. For the record, you're into Keiker and I'm a senior Konoha shinobi. Look, I would like to know what happened from start to finish while we're waiting for some food and clothes. Both girls looked surprised, but Junko didn't look so sure. How do we know you're not going to hurt Naruto-kun like those others? Junko blurted out. All he was trying to do was help us find our way back to our guardians. He didn't do anything to those ninja who suddenly attacked him. Are you going to glare at him too? For Kami's sake, he said he was living on the streets. She finished yelling at the top of her lungs and was huffing. Hinata was silently sobbing. Again. Jiraiya, for his part, looked shocked and turned pale. He knew it was bad, but him living on the streets. He felt like hell. Pure misery for not being there for Naruto. All of these years. But that was going to change and he already had an idea in mind. He just needed Kakashi to get here. Sighing and holding back from punching the wall next to him in frustration to not scare the girls, Jiraiya spoke. Nar will be fine. That doctor is one of the best that I know, and no harm is going to come to him. No one should treat a kid like that. No matter what, he'll find no harm in my care. I also know that Hiashi, Manabu, and Kosuke both are fine with you being here, girls. I just want to know what happened. Can you tell me, please? Hinata and Junko were both surprised that their father and grandfathers respectively were mentioned. Junko was still unsure, but something inside her told her that she should tell. And looking at Hinata, who nodded in her direction, the two began their tale. By the looks of anger on the man's face, her gut feelings seemed to prove right. The end of the tale came an hour later. Silence fell between the group, only broken when Osumu came in with clothes for the girls and introduced himself, who then burst out laughing when the girls started bowing when they found out he was the leader of Dagakure. He told them not to worry about it and that when they're done They should get some rest and that Naruto was going to be fine. Both girls looked like load was taken off them, but never noticed them. We have to talk soon. Look, he gave Jiraiya, who nodded back in return. Jiraiya told the girls that Nar would have his protection when they got back, which put the girls at some ease, and told them that they should get dressed and that he'll wait outside. As he made it to the door, he told them that they should get some sleep and that he would wake them up when the food was ready. Both girls said, "Hi," and Hinata yawned. He then walked outside the room where Osumu was waiting and followed him in silence until they reached outside the hospital where Hikaru was waiting outside the door for them. "I would like answers if I could please," asked Hikaru, looking hard at Osumu and Jera. Both men had guarded faces but weren't expecting his next spot on next question. "That kid is the Kobe Jinuriki and the fourth son, sent he?" Osumu looked down and Jera was still for a moment. "What you just said is an S-class secret," Jiraiya proclaimed. Hikaru put his hands up in surrender and just shook his head. "Hey, I'm not trying to dig for info. It's just I couldn't believe someone from your village would do something like that to this Naruto fellow, especially since his father was loved by that village, if not worshipped like Kami." He finished with a sigh. Jiraiya looked down in shame and there was quiet for a moment. They are so blinded by the fox that they can't see the similarities. Most of the ninja, from what I hear, don't even know or seem to have figured it out. Yet, a ninja from another village gets it in one go. My grief has even made me neglect my godson. Something I hope to re-certify soon, spoke Jiraiya in a regretful tone. Slight surprise filled Hikaru's face for a second. Hikaru then helped before a smile appeared on his face while folding his arms before pointing with his left thumb to the room behind him. "You'll be happy to know that your godson is a real piece of work. A lot of doctors lose hope in their patients. This kid would put them in their place. The kid fought like hell and is going to be all right." Osumu sighed in relief and Jiraiya looked like a burden was taken off him. Jiraiya then filled in the two elder men the story and both were angry and they didn't even really know any of the people involved. Hikaru spat on the floor before he spoke. "He will truly become an honorable man. Now I have to ask. Would you like a copy of his injuries for your Hokage?" Jiraiya nodded and almost didn't want to ask, but felt like he had to and did. Hikaru didn't look like he wanted to answer, but did while he handed a copy of his report to Jiraiya. Both the kid's arms were broke in multiple places. 4 ribs on the left and 3 on the right. And his right hand was shattered. His spleen was ruptured. His skull was fractured in 2 places. His left thumb was broke. He had no less than 5 ninja star and kunai puncture holes. I took a ninja star out of his shoulder. 2. Kunai had deeply punctured him in the gut, but didn't hit anything important. So, thank Kami for that. He has secondary burns on about 61% of his body. His right collarbone was fractured as well as his left leg, foot, and 3 toes. He had a severe concussion, many bruises and cuts, 2 broken toes on his right foot. Severe blood loss, malnutrition, and to top it off, he's got small traces of E. coli in his system, and early stages of cellulitis on his legs, while his right ankle and leg were also broken. Jiraiya started to silently let out tears as Hikaru was speaking, but letting while Osumu tried to calm him down. Hikaru decided that he was going to get to the good news. The good news is that he will be fine with some food and rest and that none of his injuries are going to be life-threatening. I almost had to do nothing at all. Except clean the wounds and take out that ninja star and those 2 kunai. Those injuries are all that I found when I rushed him in there. It could have been worse or about the same, but the fox seems to have healed him almost completely. The fox even sped up his blood-making process that he is in no danger anymore due to his rather severe blood loss. Even the E. coli and cellulitis traces completely disappeared. Though he probably won't wake up for a while due to the healing process and severe chakra exhaustion. I have to say the fox probably rushed the job and he'll be sore when he gets up. The amount of chakra the fox put out was unreal. It healed him fast, but made him incredibly tired. After a moment of silence, besides Jiraiya's silent cheers and praise to Kami for healing his godson from fatal injuries, Jiraiya asked if he could see his godson. The doctor nodded before opening up the door. Osumu was afraid to go in for fear of Fu and told the doctor that he was going to check on her. And the doctor said he was going to come as well, so he could check the girls for any injuries in case they wake up, and because he wanted to try Fu's delicious cooking. Again, Jiraiya was left with his completely fine looking godson in his underwear, with a blanket on top. He started to cry loudly this time and promised himself and Naruto that he was going to make it up to him. He stood there for what felt like forever, but finally did leave when Dr. Fujimaki came by to let him know that the food was ready. Before he left the room, he looked one last time at his godson before closing the doors, never suspecting a different conversation was eventually going happening in Naruto's mind are the changes that were going to happen slowly over the next few days. Nar woke up crying. He felt like a failure for not protecting or really getting to know his new friends that he had left. After a few minutes, he decided to get up and see where he was. And what he saw confused his mind greatly. He was fine and had no injuries, and he looked to be in some kind of sewer. Exploring a lot of Konoha's sewer system before he knew he wasn't in there. There was little light and pipes running all over the place. Young Nar couldn't figure out which direction to go, but decided to go forward since there was light in that direction. He came upon a big cage, and inside he heard movement. He didn't have to wait long as a giant nine-tailed red fox came upon him. He started shaking a little in fear, but before he could ask, what the fox spoke. So, here's my jailer coming for a chat. I'm happy you're up finally. It's been 8 days before a form of consciousness was in you that allowed this link. How do you feel? Taken off guard a little by a giant fox asking him how he felt, he decided to answer. Fine, Nar replied before staring at the fox in curiosity. The fox just burst out laughing before saying, you won't be fine when you wake up. Hell, the amount of injuries you sustained cost me a lot of chakra to heal. You'll be stiff and sore for a while, though I have to applaud you for protecting your vixens. Nar may not have been taught much, but that didn't mean he didn't have a vocabulary. Growing up on the streets, he picked up a lot of words and even secretly listened into some of the lessons taught at the orphanage to other kids. He knew basic numbers and many words but didn't know how to read or write, but he never heard the word vixens before, so he asked and only got more laughter from the fox before said fox explained vixen meaning mate, though the fox did face palm when Nar asked what mate meant, all the while wondering why stupid humans would make another human stupider, though did laugh when after the explanation Nar turned completely red. I can tell he's going to be a dense one. I may have some fun with this head. The fox mused to himself. Nar, wanting to quiet the idle chatter, finally asked the question that was bothering him. What are you doing here? And where is here? And didn't the Yandaime kill you? Asked Nar, not liking where he was. The fox sighed before answering that blasted fourth Hokage sealed me in here. And where here is kid is you? Where in your mindscape? Nar was floored. He couldn't believe that his hero, the Yandaime, sealed The fox into him. Now, all those comments his tormentors made a bunch of sense. I really am a demon, he said to himself. But the fox heard him with his sharp hearing and burst out laughing. Haha. That's a good one, kid. You are demon. Haha. This did nothing more than to make the 6-year-old Nar scowl. What do you know, you fox? He said with pain evident. The fox sighed as he saw Nar start to tear up again. The fox sighed again before explaining. Kid, don't be like the other ignorant ones. When you look into this cage, do you see yourself? Nar shook his head. What do you see? Nar thought for a moment before replying with a foxy grin. Something that told even the great Kaiu no Yoko to be on guard. I see an overgrown furball. The fox's left eye was twitching, and he had to silently give the Gaki this one. But revenge was swift. That right. You're an ignorant human. That's denser than Kiri's fog. Hearing Naruto yell, hey. This only served to make the fox chuckle before continuing. You are my jailer and nothing more. A human in body, heart, and mind, but a human sacrifice.